like not to be here until 11 o'clock tonight? That's the basis of this question? Somebody's happy down there. It being 6:03, I call the April, what is today, 8th?
Yes,
Thank you.
nailed it.
April 8th, meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Seeing as I don't have an agenda in front of me, do you? Give me a minute to find an agenda, I didn't get one. Oh, all right, Inspections Department?
Could I make a really quick comment? I joined on YouTube. This is just for you guys.
Oh, microphones.
I was on the YouTube channel last night, but you could just hear a lot of whispering. So you can, it seems like there's talk on the microphone, but you can hear all that. So if everyone could just be aware of that, if you're talking, when other people are talking, you can hear. No, usually you can't just hear what's being said, but it's distracting.
That's good.
Okay,
There's
thanks.
some lucky things.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes. Pull back feedback.
I guess we're going to take first up
Yeah.
is the Inspections Department?
Yep.
Oh, he's already in. Inspecting early.
He's ready.
Jamie, you want to do an intro? And then we'll go from there?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you can see the budget is going up about 9,000 in terms of salaries for the staff, and then a couple thousand in expenses. I think those are some basic cost increases for sealers, weights and measures. The contract's going up, but Gus can really answer anything you got. It's a pretty small budget, I think most of the numbers probably speak for themselves.
Ladies, gentlemen, any questions, comments? Boy, you're going to have... I have a question.
Who are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm Gus Brown, the Franklin Building Commissioner. I have my budget narrative in front of me. If you want me to read a portion of it, I certainly can do that. However, if that's not needed,
I think we're good.
Okay.
I have a question on,
Mr. Chairman.
with the building ratcheting down, has that affected you? Had any real effect on
It has, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, committee. It has the cost of everything and homeowners pulling back, interest rates and so forth have cut into that. However, Maplegate is going to do a solar farm. I'm sure you're all aware of that. That did help our budget.
Is that in this year's?
It will be in next year's.
Next
It will be the end of fiscal year '26. Basically, we took the check in a couple months ago. So that will help with any drop-off that we had.
What was the check for?
Building permit for the solar panels. It's a ground-mounted solar farm that they're doing at Maplegate, which is relatively large in size. And that will help with our monies that we bring in this year to offset any differences.
So is that in the numbers we're looking at, or next? Because I suspect it's a very large number.
The revenue of the license and permits,
Yeah,
so it is not.
it is not. So that's
Next,
next year.
next month. Are you
Next
talking about the
month.
local receipts?
What fiscal
revenue?
year?
This fiscal year,
It
FY
will be this
'26.
fiscal year.
The,
The building permit?
yes.
For Maplegate?
Yeah.
Yeah, they paid it, but it doesn't go into next year's free cash, right?
No, it will not, unless I exceed, a portion of it might, it depends.
Oh, I see,
have to
I see.
exceed what I budgeted for license and permits, which I did 1,679,000. So I have not exceeded that yet. Does that make sense?
What-
I didn't hear how much the permit was, I apologize if you want to.
I'm guessing it was 600 grand, something like, that was the number.
You are
I-
very close, Mr. Chairman.
But my issue is, if we have the check, shouldn't we have it
So
in?
when did we receive the check? What month?
End of February.
Okay, so the numbers I ran here are as of the end of March. So as long as I can confirm that it was posted, then we have it in there. yes.
But so it's in effect next year's free cash?
It could be a portion of it. So free cash is when we get extra of what we budgeted for license and permits, what we thought we were taking in. And Linda, if I'm incorrect in what I'm saying, please
Yep.
correct me.
So,
But it's also the overall, so if others are under, it'll get absorbed.
Right.
so did we budget for it in FY
No.
'26 or FY '27?
It'll be for FY '27, it's coming in the numbers now, but we didn't budget it for this year because we didn't know if the deal would close. They just closed on New Year's Eve.
I'm so confused as to when it ends up in free cash. It can't be this year's free cash.
No.
And does it end up in
Wait a
free
minute.
cash at all?
So you get, I deposited in FY '26, okay? And if some of it goes to free cash, next year, in FY '27, that's where it'll be.
So on the local receipts, it's an aggregate, right? So it'll show up if they come in February?
I believe so, yeah.
So it came in February, so it's going to be marked in on the quarterly number here. But what Linda's saying is, if we assumed licenses and permits, we assumed a revenue source of for this fiscal year '26, the current fiscal year, we assumed 1.67 million in licenses and permits. What Linda's saying is, if through the fiscal year, we didn't come anywhere near close to that building permit number, okay, then it's basically that amount of money is kind of supplanting the other categories which may have a deficiency in them. But if there's a surplus and our revenues are higher than that, and that building permit exceeds what we expected to be revenue, it'll then go into free cash. It goes into the certification process for the fall. So it'll be available next year. So,
Can I ask a question?
hold on one sec, Tom. So right now, you have an aggregate number in the FY '26 budget of 15.2 million for local receipts. This fiscal year, in the current fiscal year, which is totally different than the budget discussion we're talking about tonight, we've assumed 15.2 million in local receipts. If, regardless of the $600,000 or whatever it is, if there are revenues that exceed 15.2 million, that goes into free cash.
For next year.
For next year, exactly. But if some of the hotel tax, or meals tax, or penalties and interest, or recreation receipts, or rental fees, or other fees, or fines and forfeits, investment income, if all of those other categories, it's not on the sheet you're looking at.
No.
So if all that number is lower than 15.2 million, then nothing goes to free cash. I definitely still see confused faces.
Can
I'm
I-
trying to, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
All right, I hate to be an accounting geek on this one. So you got a check for how much?
I'm looking at, we got several checks. In fact, the electrical permits are still pending right now.
So do we recognize the revenue when we provide the service? Matching revenue with the cash?
No, and I'll
Revenue
tell-
with the expense?
No, and the reason why is because if we went by on revenue on category, Gus would have a staff of 40 people, because he brings in millions of dollars in permits every year, and that's the same with every building commissioner in Massachusetts, right? So it doesn't necessarily go and match the exact service. His budget is only $471,000 in total, but he just got a $500,000 building permit. So it's not a dollar for dollar on all these numbers. Does that make sense?
No, I guess I'm asking if he gets the check and he provides a third of the service in 1 year, you recognize
Oh.
a third of that check.
Correct.
If he finishes it the next year, the
Yes.
other 2/3, he recognizes the cash in the other 2/3 of the year. That way
fiscal-
you match
fiscal-
your expense with your revenue, so to speak.
Yes to your
Counting
question,
101.
based off fiscal year, not calendar year, just to be clear.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if we were to look at
Yes.
this,
Yes.
is this an opportunity to put some additional revenue into next year's budget if we're gonna match revenue with expense?
Well,
You can't do that.
Thereby
can't-
reducing some,
I'll say this, we can't we can't delay the permit approval.
I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about the accounting on how
No,
we handle.
you can't do
revenue
that.
expense.
Not from an accounting perspective, no.
That way, you know,
Nope.
revenue that's gonna be
Nope.
earned in '27
Nope.
gets recognized in '27.
Nope. From an just from an accounting perspective, the answer is no. When the money comes in, when he gets the application for a permit, right? And he goes and signs off on the permit, they give him the permit for the electrical permit, the plumbing permit, like whatever it is, that revenue goes in and is documented at that time and is relevant to that fiscal year.
Okay, so he's on a cash basis.
Cat, sure. Yep. So free cash is made up by excess revenues that were unanticipated, so does that,
We're asking.
is that-
Oh, I'm clear on what free cash is.
Okay,
If we're still on that, continue.
okay, no, I just want to make sure everybody follow, or,
I'm set.
So, just to clarify,
that's why I asked.
no, I know, but I'm gonna
Okay.
just highlight something. So this appendix that's in your budget book is a balance as of 2/28/26. So I think that's what you're talking about, Carrie? This is me in the documents that you post online. So
Sorry, Jim, which document are you,
this is one of your appendix on the budget book,
Okay,
okay,
right?
yes.
So under the licensing and permits, the amount as of 2/28 was 1.4, so that didn't include the 600, because you said that that was at the end of,
Yes, that historical data sheet that you're looking at has,
as of the end of February.
Through
You
the
just
chair.
used-
I did.
Just,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
it actually, one of them came in December, so I was wrong.
Oh, okay, so maybe there is a little bit in there.
But we also have electrical permits that are yet to be paid.
Okay,
So some of it's,
but this was just as of that date.
that's correct. And the sheet
then-
that Jamie was referring to is as of March 31st. I'm always a little behind.
Yeah, that doesn't have the individual though, that's just an aggregate of the total. Yeah.
in those
This one has them
categories,
individualized.
correct.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Through the chair, we're at 1.4 now? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
With revenue from,
1.49.
so we're in line to line up with last year right now, no more, no less, is what I think.
Okay, so we budgeted $1,679.
Yeah.
So you're 88%, 89% there.
We'll keep plugging away,
You always do. Thank you.
do the best
So
we
you
can,
went-
with the staff we have,
Do you want more staff?
always.
More staff, that's what we do.
It isn't in the budget this year.
Where would you put new staff?
There's there's some more important people out there that need staff.
Okay. So that's a subjective comment. But I would ask, you know, because I know Ryan usually asks us too, if there's an area that you could add into your budget, what would that be?
We would add into the budget with more of the periodic inspections that we do. I have one local inspector that is full-time with me, and a town this size, and again, I hesitate to say this, but a town this size with 2 people in the building department is a heavy lift.
And what would that person do and what would he generate in fees?
I did steal it.
That's a million-dollar question, Tom. I'm not sure what that would be,
Stay in my room.
but it would make a difference. It would definitely pay for the staff member, but again, there's a lot of other people right now that need the money.
Well, if you can get something that pays for itself, that.
We certainly do.
generates certain things, it also helps the aggregate.
It helps with the revenue, absolutely. I just don't know what that number would be. I'm sure I could figure it out,
It'd be good exercise.
definitely.
Now you're just.
So, sorry, it's
Sorry.
not a question for you. Carrie,
Yes.
it's just back to projection for the 27. So I know we weren't counting on Maplegate in 26. I understand the accrual of free cash. I do. I get that it's in the aggregate, but we're showing a pretty significant increase from 26 to the projection for 27.
Yes, on
Is
the budget
that-
control sheet.
yes, is that then a risk item? Because I think I'm hearing you say, we're not quite there yet for this year, and we have a large unexpected item that's helping us along, and we're still not there. And yet, next year, we're saying we're gonna get an additional 800K. Like, is that, in the
Overall?
aggregate level, is that?
Overall, we're estimating we'll get an additional 800K. All of
Right.
these categories up top.
Understood. I'm just,
Okay.
I'm just asking at the macro level, because like, it seems like in one of the categories this year, we had a bigger unexpected boost item. And we're still not all the way there to the point where we're pouring in free cash, right? So, like, now we're saying it's gonna go up next year. Is that because we raise it every year, or is that based on World Cup, or is that, like, what is that?
It's based on a lot of things. World Cup is one of them. It's based on every year we increase it by 5%. We typically, with Linda and Evan, we look at the numbers. We cannot exceed one particular item, because the Department of Revenue will say, you didn't get it last year, so you can't increase it next year. So we are very conservative when we do this. Like,
I think that
and if
confirms,
I-
I just want to confirm, like, you feel that this 16 million here, overall, like, I get that it breaks down into its parts, but is still net a fairly conservative number, not one that we've now lifted so much that we may end up with less free cash.
no, I do not.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Diverted.
That was a good question.
I have I have a question for you. So instead of asking what I've been asking everybody else, where would you cut? Because your answer will be, you're not going to cut anywhere. My next question, my instead question is, and I don't have one of these in front of me, so, but what did your department, from a staffing perspective, what did your department look like historically? Let's say when times were better and we weren't in budget crunch time.
I had 3 full-time administrative assistants and 3 inspectors. And we are online with our permit process, but what's happened is I've become an administrator, so has my local inspector, to pick up the extra slack because of things being plucked away.
So you had, how many administrators?
3 administrative assistants
Okay,
that just solely work for the building department.
Yeah.
Now we have one, it's actually a permit specialist, I
Yep.
believe, the way it's written now.
Yep, that's right.
And then that lady that works for me splits her time with planning, health, and conservation. So she mainly works for me, but it's all hands on deck down there.
and is that the clerical support,
That is...
or is that a different position? I'm just trying to go off the ones that are up here.
Gus, the clerical support is Melanie and Casey.
Right.
So it's 1.5 FTEs in the clerical support.
Okay, so the clerical support has 2 people,
1.5.
sorry,
It's okay.
1.5, that's
Features,
important,
yeah.
I agree. Has 1.5 people, and you used to have 3.
Yes.
Okay. And then the inspectors, not including yourself, there's 4 up here. And-
We've always had mechanical inspectors, which are part-time, which is the electrical and plumbing, so I didn't include them in the two building inspectors that I have, or 1 building inspector and myself.
Okay, so is
So
the,
originally, we had, staff-wise, we had 3 clerical, 3 building inspectors, and 2 part-time mechanical inspectors, so there were 8 of us. Did I
okay.
get that right?
Yes, now I got it.
Did I add that right?
It's not that you didn't get it right, it's that the words that you're saying don't match
Yes.
the words
No,
up
I
here,
know,
so I was
I know.
having a,
Yeah. Good question.
couldn't translate that in my own brain. Okay, thank you.
I guess just to build off these 2 comments here, if in a future state you did have kind of additional inspectors, would that bring in more revenue, or is this about just capacity
Of
kind of
cour-
within the team?
Of course it would, absolutely.
So this would be, you can get to more things and bring in more money, okay.
Just to touch on that through the chair, the day I retire, which hopefully isn't anytime soon, you're going to farm out my job to someone else. Be prepared that that person coming in is going to look at my staff and say, this is a busy town to navigate through with the amount that I have now. So just so you know, and we are online, we're doing pretty good, but we've also become administrators as well, which takes away from what our real job is. Not
Gotcha.
complaining. I like it here, it's a good job, it's just to let everyone know what we got going on.
Yeah, we've just talked about revenue opportunities here. This seems like one of those areas that we could address in the future to help the top line.
Which gets into, I'm gonna follow up on that on process. So correct me if I'm wrong. You have to do the final inspection, and you sign off that, okay, they met all the criteria that we had set out. Then at that moment in time, you send it to the assessor's office. Is that correct?
It's done for me through the assessors. They keep a log of my permits going out, so they're actually going out there while that job is going on before the final inspection.
Yeah, but when, you have to do the final inspection before the assessors can do their work.
No, no, I'm gonna correct you. The minute that permit's pulled, they get that in their database, and they start right away. So they prorate it, for lack of a better word, through the process. They go out there, it might just be a kitchen. They might go out during a rough inspection just to look, put eyes on it, so that they can assess that at that junction. Does that make sense? Did I explain that right?
I hear what you said, but I can't comprehend it. And what I mean by that is that the assessor assesses the project when it's finally done. Or what you're saying, he can assess it throughout.
He'll-
But when does he start charging, when does he start increasing the base for tax purposes? It may not be a fair question.
It is, very fair. It actually could be when that building permit is pulled or they first put eyes on it. And they first put eyes on it before the final inspection. Exact timing, Tom, I'm not sure.
Okay? But it's more question.
Hey, Tom, can you just pull your microphone?
Huh?
Okay, just so the recording gets you.
I don't know if he needs it.
You might not.
And I don't have my hearing aids on, so it's worse. I'm sorry. But, okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry, Karen Brad, HR Director. I just was hoping Gus could comment on what the staffing looks like in similar towns, because we've had this conversation a lot. If you are working for a town like Needham with a similar population, how many staff members do they have?
I'll do one better. I go to Medway. They have 3 full-time people. One's a zoning officer, and they have 2 full-time inspectors. And are they 10,000 people in Medway?
A little bit higher than that, I think. Maybe 16.
Needham's got a
It's probably about
gaggle.
half the size of Franklin.
Needham has a gaggle of people there. There's 4 to 5 inspectors. And they're the same population, I think. They have more of a industrial base and commercial base, so. But it's a lot. It's a heavy lift for here. And
14,000.
we're all doing it. It's not just my department. Working harder with less over the years. Every department's gotten cut over the years to balance the budget. And I don't think people quite understand everything we do.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be intrusive into what people's thoughts are, but this whole Monday night was great. This is great, to explain what we do. Jamie had asked us quite some time ago to do this, and this is the first chance I've had.
So if you said you have like a work order system, where you have an inventory of sites you have to go to. Okay, how much of a backlog is that?
The backlog isn't so much on the day-to-day inspections, Tom. What the backlog is the inspections of multifamily homes. We work heavily with the fire department to go out October, November, December to do all the businesses and the schools, daycares, things of that nature. So there's not much of a backlog on that, but there is on the multifamily inspections and then the zoning violations out there.
So as we have this backlog, again, getting to the point of can we increase cash collections? If we were to speed up a lot of things, would we increase our cash collections? Would we be able to get properties on the tax roll to get their, on the tax roll so they can start paying taxes quicker?
Not so much on that, but on the inspections that we need to find the time to do. And those inspections aren't based on building permits that have been pulled, because that's done pretty proactively with the assessor department. This is a little bit different. Multifamilies are supposed to be done every 5 years. And then you see things that people have to upgrade when you go there, and it might need a building permit, it might make the value of the property more that people pay on it. It's a multitude of things, and plus the safety part.
Thank you.
One question. Seeing as you've got a 80-acre solar farm coming, how does that get inspected with this staff?
With everything else we do,
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of work. Is it out, do you farm it out, for lack of a better term?
we do not farm it out, we do it all in-house.
Well,
I think it was brought up Monday night, is it a savings if we do it ourselves? Some departments can't. We try to do it that way to keep it as low budget as we possibly can.
I'll note from personal experience, he has a an electrical inspector and a plumbing inspector whose combined age is about 160.
We
No,
shouldn't be
you
talking
wait.
about that, George.
Huh?
I'm going to jump in, we shouldn't be talking about that.
Oh, we can't talk about?
We can say we need to have some succession planning, I think, but we're not going to
Oh,
talk
okay, we
about their
need some
age.
succession planning.
I will touch on this. They're doing about 10 inspections per inspector per day. And that's a heavy lift for 4 hours. They're going home at night and they're doing permits at night. They're not paid for that. That might not be good for me to say, but they're not. They're doing it of their own free will at night. I see the permits being done at 7:30 at night. They love, you know them, they love their jobs.
They do.
But we look at everything we do here. Most towns have full-time plumbing and electrical inspectors and get benefits. It's a bargain. I'm telling you, it's a bargain. It's a bargain on everything everybody does here.
Okay, any other questions? Early night?
There's not another town in this Commonwealth like Franklin, I'm gonna tell you right now. I go and I pull permits in other towns. What we get with the bang for the buck here is beyond good and reasonable. Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Can we put him out advertising to come? He's good at it.
He's great at it.
He's good at it.
Thank you, Shane, the comment.
All right. It's Mr. Brutus. I think you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bruce Nareggi, Public Works Director, and sitting next to me is Kathy Warren. She runs all the numbers, and I know you guys are looking at numbers. And I probably will say, been watching a couple of the other meetings, I'm sure you're gonna have some questions for me. So, I thought what I would do is, I put a couple slides together, just to give you a little background on Public Works. We go through, might be able to answer some of your questions.
Behind you, Bruce. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out.
Technical assistance?
We had your back, Bruce. We anticipated that.
So the first one, just to give you an overall, through the years, the operating budget of Public Works. So 3 years ago in FY '24, to be fiscal year, my operating budget was $6,009,768. What I've requested this year is $6,085,983. That represents only a 1.2% increase, okay? What I'm just trying to show here is that Public Works, over the last 3 years, we've already been cut. I've already had to make tough decisions on where we're gonna be getting money from. Basically numbers, and you could show things different ways, but what's been requested through the years and what was actually appropriate or recommended, sometimes you guys have recommended, sometimes the council hasn't followed, or whatever. But on FY '24, my budget was cut $60,000, In FY '25, 190,000, and then last year, 400,000. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And additionally, in this budget, I think you should know that, I give you the exact number, but around $800,000 of the services that I provide in Public Works goes directly to the schools, okay? That is money that's used, say, for field mowing, staff time over there, and moving different type things, and different contracts that we have over there. So that's part of my budget also, already. And that's pretty much the highlight of that part. I wanted to show you, let me sure I get this the right way. So budget increases, this is on Mr. Hellen's spreadsheets that he had put out there. I went through it. But just to show you the different departments, over the last 10 years, how much their departments have gone up over 10 years. And I think, obviously, I'm highlighting this because Public Works is the lowest. Okay, we've gone up the least amount. Municipal services, that's basically the costs that we've had to deal with, whether it's the insurance, stuff like that. Then the fixed cost, I think you know what goes on with that. This is always a big thing, road work and paving. This is in the operating budget over the last 10 years. This year I'm requesting 250. And you can go down through this, you can see it's varied through different years. Okay, I can tell you through history though, like FY '21, '22, and '23, the numbers look low, and if you think back, those were pretty good years. But the reason was because our construction budget was supplemented through the ARPA money and federal money that was available at the time, so choices were made elsewhere. And also during that time, we were doing, as I've explained to you before, I did my presentation before, the council had appropriated money for water line improvement work. You know, we did basically like $5 to $7 million over a bonding period, so I had basically $1 to $1.5 million a year for, you know, a water pipe, which included the road improvements. Capital road infrastructure budget, the last 10 years, you can see that the last 4 years, I haven't got anything. And that's the capital that's going through there. And then it goes back to other years, you can see revenue is higher, we're able to get more money.
Question, what's the definition of capital roads and infrastructure?
Capital would be.
You had paving on the other slides, right?
So that was in my operating budget. So
Okay.
like my actual operating budget you're looking at,
Okay.
if you go
All right.
back, there was $250,000 in there, which like
Okay.
for crack sealing, chip sealing, stuff like
Okay,
that.
so
That's pretty much how you.
It's the same thing, it's just in different categories.
Capital tend to be more of, like we're rebuilding roads, like the paving type stuff, opposed to like the general maintenance. If you think of this stuff, the road work budget, that's like a long-term maintenance. So we crack seal, we chip seal roads so they last longer. This, we're kind of getting to the point where we're rebuilding roads, I generally say. It's not always that way, but that's kind of how we've done it. Some good news, the snow budget over the last 3 years, you can see we had last year was obviously very high, 2.1 million. But over the 3-year average, it's averaged about 1.3, almost 1.4. We've been estimating 1.4. But don't forget, last year's budget, this is just the operating. We had to take money out of the reserves that we had left over from before. I think there's relatively $100,000 still in that reserve fund, give or take, maybe less. We haven't finalized the number.
Waiting for Kathy's final report, which I know will be there soon because she
It's
was
very
waiting to
close.
see if there was
Yeah.
snow again.
It's very close.
It's very close, yeah. Yeah.
Like yesterday?
Like yesterday, yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
But that's kind of good news. So this year, my requested highlights, go through this. Some of the stuff is basic type stuff, you know, electricity's gone up, I think we all know that. Sidewalks, this is pretty much a request from the council. If you follow it, they're always trying to improve sidewalks around here. They get a lot of complaints. And additionally, we're under requirements, we have to improve so many crosswalks a year. If we don't do that, then we could be fined. I'm not gonna tell you we're gonna get fined, I've never seen a town fined for that, but potentially there could be, you know, if there was a liability, someone fell. Most of the other stuff is just the cost of stuff going up. Street line painting, that's one that we've been cutting for a while. You know, remember I told you with the stuff? Now would be the long painting, as I like to call it. That's the center lines in the road. You know, you can kind of put that off, but I think if you drive around town, you can start to see some of these roads are starting to fade. You can only go so long without it, okay? The recycling center, that's just costs going up that we have to deal with up there. The rigid plastic, I think, that's the stuff we get a lot rid of. And then I came to you about mattresses before. We did raise the fee on mattresses, but that goes into we don't collect, it's not specific towards DPW, so it goes in there. I think I told you snow and ice, I've asked just for level funding. The other big two here are tree trimming and removal. That was, we always get a lot of complaints about, trees out there, pruning type stuff. That was cut, so I put it back in there. Contract services for schools, that just keeps going up. We have to outsource some of that work. The summer help, we put that back in there. I can't stress that enough. You look at it, we're helping out college kids, they work through the summer, but realistically, it's a deal. We're paying these folks $16 an hour to go out there and, weed whack, do the mowing, picking up the trash barrels. That's a real good deal because a regular town employee can cost anywhere with benefits, $60 to $70 an hour. So it just makes sense that we do that. It's obviously a lot cheaper than the contracted services. And then electricity and stuff. I put this on here for the Central Motors, just to show you that we actually, we looked at our radios reduction, we've gone down on that. But obviously, auto parts have gone up. I think we all know that through inflation, I could say this about a lot of things, have gone up more than 1.5%. So, but that's what we had to do, I addressed that. So that's pretty much it. I just want to give you highlights on that before you have any specific questions that I could answer for you.
And Jamie, this might be a question for you, but I want to justify the two different pieces of information. I think in your recommendation, you had something about suggesting we put more into snow and ice.
Yeah.
Instead of the tree trimming. But I think I just heard Brutus explain he has both in his budget.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
Yes and no. I made a comment in there that there was, I think about, Kathy, correct me on the exact dollar, it was about $279,000 in some of the restorations of key areas that we felt was necessary to try to propose, tree trimming being one of them, and a variety of other accounts. And there's a list way down deep in the narrative. And I think I had made a comment that earlier in February, like depending on snow season, and then Armageddon did hit a couple times, and just claused it by saying, even in February, you're starting to see the amount of the operating budget in snow and ice, we'd be dipping into stabilization. And I'm also illustrating this too, I'm sure you're aware of what I'm saying, but also just for the YouTube clip and just for people at home that may be watching. I had said that if it was a really bad year, we got into that snow and ice, that come final budget, which is not presented in this model, but it will be presented as an option further along, depending on, even aside from the Financial Committee recommendation, that I would propose that maybe those restored funds would not be something I would recommend, because I feel like we have to up the snow and ice budget because we just had a really bad year, plus we draining probably the majority of, if not all of the snow and ice stabilization. I got hit hard a few years ago for even creating this snow and ice stabilization fund. And it's a pretty good thing, because when we were talking about free cash last night, you would have no free cash for anything if we didn't have that snow and ice stabilization fund. So that was a good preparatory mechanism, and I know Brutus, and I joke, he was definitely upset at me. And we don't always agree, but this was one, I think, looking out, that was a smart move. I hope that summarizes it. Was there something else there in terms of the snow and ice slide? Bruce, do you want to go back, or Kathy, go back to the snow and ice slide?
Yeah, I think.
So is the 1.42, I believe that was your original proposal in the budget submittal in January, correct?
That's what's currently in
That's what's currently in there, yeah.
Yeah. So you would be recommending putting $279K on top of that?
On top of that, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I guess, like, I know that this is a time-stamped thing.
Yeah.
Would you still recommend that same thing
I would.
now, given how the season?
100%. To me, the snow and ice removal, again, just for folks at home and people who may be paying attention, or other board members, if we up that 279 ballparking it, which would get up to about 1.7, right? So if we had that 1.7, and hopefully it's a dry winter, right, and we don't have a lot of snow, because the cost of snow removal are up there, then at least the excess in our snow and ice policy, so say we used 1.5 or the 1.7, then we could start to build up the stabilization fund again. And to me, that's just, feels like a more sound strategy. But that does not, and I know you also understand exactly what I'm saying, that does not slight Brutus's earlier slide of the cuts that have happened, whether it's trash barrels, summer help, tree trimming, crosswalk painting. The roads budget, I think, does stick out. Natalie and George will remember the one year we had 600,000 in roads was the one year we did the stormwater transition. So a lot of that money that was from stormwater was freed up for roads. We thought we were making a pretty good dent in that. But obviously, Ryan, as we move forward, it's all tight. As you pointed out last night, maybe we can only do 80% of the lights, but we can't do 80% of the snow removal. You know, like, that's not an option, right? And National Grid will be at the council meeting in a couple weeks on April 15th, and they're a partner with us with tree trimming. There's other ways. State aid has increased on Chapter 90 for road maintenance. We got another 300,000 this year because of the millionaire's tax. So in terms of the other services that are there, while it's not optimum, like, you know, we can triage other and leverage other ways of kind of addressing some of those issues. It's not where we want to be. But like I said, you can't do 80% of the lights on snow and ice. Like, it is what it is, and it costs a lot. And if we didn't have anything on this, then we really are then truly dipping into free cash because there's no other revenue source. And with FEMA going kind of away, you know, we've applied. I know the governor has applied for snow and ice removal damages to the federal government. I'm not playing politics by saying this. Some people are really cynical that there'll be politics involved in that. I do have hope that FEMA will reimburse the state of Massachusetts for some of that money, but I also just caution, FEMA reimbursements don't come in like next month. This takes years for FEMA. Even in a great year with a fully funded FEMA, it may be 2 or 3 years before we see a replenishment of the money from federal emergency money. So I hope that was a little educational for folks that, you know, maybe are watching at home and maybe the board. And why the snow and ice was, I think, really important to shift that proposal to.
Question on that, actually. If we did get FEMA money in the future, again, against that, 2.1 or whatever, does that just go in as a one-time revenue?
Yes.
Yeah.
On that year that we get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions, a couple questions. You talked about the recycling center, okay? I visited that quite a bit. So why isn't that part of like the enterprise category? Why is it kind of a separate department?
It's not allowed.
Isn't it a part of waste disposal though, is it conceptually?
We don't take trash up there. It's a separate fee that has to be paid because it would have to be open to all residents. They have to They did do it at one time and they actually were challenged in court.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 20 years ago.
So it can't be classified as waste. Okay, and how often do we up the fees? Because I know I have some information here that suggests that we run that at a loss.
We do an annual type thing. We look at the fees. I mean,
Can we get like a P&L on that? That should be something that should be
P&L?
profit and
A profit
loss.
loss, yeah.
Cash in, cash out.
we
See
pretty
if
much
there's
do
enough-
that.
Huh?
We pretty much do that every year.
Okay, can we?
But yeah,
Kathy can send it out to the board.
Hey, can we have it for tomorrow night?
I don't know, Kathy, can we have it for tomorrow night?
Yeah, I feel like it was.
Derek, you want to just introduce yourself too with your,
Derek Adams, Environmental Affairs Coordinator. I don't have those specific numbers with me, but I would say in general, for the last 10 years, typically, we're in the green 4 consecutive years, about $3,000, and then we have 1 big year of a loss. And those the 5-year annual average pretty much evens out.
Yeah, it'd be nice, kind of.
Sure, we can get that for you.
Please.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
You know, George. Just a couple questions.
Sure.
One, do you know the difference on contracted versus in-house? Because we've been talking a lot about, you know, efficiencies and ways to do things internally, which is at a better value and a better opportunity. So just wondering if you have an idea, because I noticed a lot of the contracted accounts are going up,
yes.
but I also noticed that staffing-wise, you look pretty staffed. So just kind of figuring out what that looks like as far as contracted services.
A lot, I think as you realize that we do so many different services, so we look at them. There's probably a staffing issue that is asked before. I can tell you, I've run the department for almost 22 years. We have the same staff as when we started. We've actually, if you look at the grounds department, somewhat reduced. When we brought in the enterprise fund for the stormwater, we didn't create new jobs, we just moved them for a new funding source.
Yep.
When we went through that. There's a myriad of different things we've looked at, whether it's, picking up trash barrels. That's kind of a popular one lately. The staff we run the numbers, and I guess I could, like what it would take per folks to do that, opposed to having a contractor do it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious, because the contracted lines are going up, like you had mentioned, so I'm just wondering, like, what are some of those big ticket items that we contract now that would constitute those increases?
Well, the biggest one I would say would obviously be trash and recycle. We outsource that to Waste Management.
Right, obviously.
And that's millions of dollars. The other big one we do, and I'm sure Carlos can address it, is mowing some of the fields. And
Okay.
the contractors doing that, because, you're exactly right. It's a balance of the best one I can say is last year, we got questions about buying a lawnmower. That was $90,000. Oh my God, a $90,000 lawnmower. People say, oh, you should have a 22-inch mower. Well, that lawnmower does, I think it was like 45 acres in a day. So it was very efficient, and that's one guy running it. But then if we look at cleaning up around the schools, which we're entitled to, like doing traffic islands and stuff like that, a lot of tedious type work, it's cheaper for a contractor to do that. And that's why we've looked at different numbers, or it doesn't get done, because I just don't have the staff to do that.
So do we buy the equipment we don't buy the equipment for the contractors?
absolutely not.
Oh, okay, so two separate scenarios.
Yeah, I'm just showing you one, in that example, it makes sense that I have one body and a really good lawnmower to be able to do a lot of grass.
Okay,
Whereas bodies, I think, as you know, whatever department you talk to, people are very expensive. And it's not just the cost we pay for them an hour, it's all the benefits, the retirement, everything that goes along with that. So that's what we look at, to do, and I just say more the menial type task. It's cheaper for a contractor to do that.
okay. Couple more, sorry. So looking at your historical information.
Sure.
So I know you had talked about your budget only going up 1.2%, looking at it as an aggregate across all areas. I looked at the salaries. They're at like 6.8, which I'm assuming a majority of those, sorry, Steve, is contractual obligations.
Correct.
I'm just a little curious because it looks like salaries last year went up 25%. And this year, they're only up like 6.8%. So I'm wondering, like, did we lose staff? Like, is there a rationale for that? Because it just feels like a big difference, and if we're not losing people and we're reallocating, I'm trying to figure out what that looks like.
Is it actual?
Especially if we can do things
Was it budget or
in-house.
actually because the one problem I'm having in Public Works is staff. Like, we have a
Right.
big transitional, people aren't, I think you all know.
That's everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure,
So that's why I wasn't sure. And I wasn't sure if that was lending to the need for increased contracted service. So that's how it kind of tied in for me.
I'm not sure exactly what numbers you're looking at.
Yeah.
The ones on your front sheet.
Is it looking at expended versus?
yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
Can I jump in, Chair?
Yeah, I'd love
Jen,
to.
is that looking at actual expended or budgeted?
So it's FY expended
Yep.
versus FY budgeted.
Okay.
That's correct.
So last year, we might want to look back at what was actually budgeted, because we had a lot of turnover last year, and we had a lot of positions that were open for a long period of time. So I imagine what the actual expended was lower than what was budgeted for, but you have to budget as if you're fully staffed for the entire year. And the actual expended was a lot lower than that. So that would be my guess. I don't have the chart in front of
I'm
me.
sure that's correct, because we typically underspend.
Oh, I thought you said
Our salary
staffing.
budget, because
Oh.
you have to budget full staff.
Oh.
Then, as she mentioned, we have turnover, so then you don't spend, you may have a vacancy of a whole
Well, I
year.
understand that, but I don't think that that's,
So if you look at, are you looking at the 1.662 million
Yeah.
number? Yeah, so if you look, that's expended. So that's So if you look at that and and then you go to the next year, and FY '26, that's the current fiscal year. So that's still what was budgeted and approved this year, but we haven't, go ahead.
No, I'm going to let you finish, because we
Okay.
haven't spent it yet, because we're not at the end of the fiscal year.
Right, so you can't compare FY '25 expended to FY '27
Right.
proposed, because that number is going to be higher, and that is going to be probably, I'm just ballparking, 1.662 million was expended in salaries in FY '25. 2.21 million is what's proposed right now for the personal services, and that's going to be about 25%. But those are apples and oranges, right?
Well, no, because I'm just saying, if you're always budgeting for full capacity, right, and then people leave or whatnot,
Right.
and that's a big difference, though, for
Well,
just a few
But the previous year in
vacancies for a
FY
few months.
'24 was 1.825.
Do you know what I'm saying, though? That's a big discrepancy for just,
It was beyond the normal year of turnovers and people not being able to fill positions for a while. I mean, we could certainly look into it more, but that would.
I would just be
that makes
curious,
sense
because
to
I
me.
feel like it's big. My other question is, I see some of these lines that have like $12,000 or whatnot, and maybe this is more of your question. There's a salary attached to that. Is that a stipend for the position?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not seeing the whole amount, it's in different categories. So there's a stipend there's someone who has a job, and then their stipend is in a different category. Okay, that was my other question. And then, sorry, George. Giving me the evil eye.
Say
sorry.
Yeah.
Well, because, no, you just told me at the beginning, we had to be quick tonight.
You're doing a job.
Okay, vehicles. I love to talk vehicles. Can you talk to me about the process? Because, obviously, when we look at, like, the cumulative town vehicle report, you sit pretty high, right? Those are vehicles that are do they leave the town, or no? Like, I'm just curious.
No.
Well, what are you giving me the evil eye for?
I'm not giving the evil eye of anything.
I'm just looking because that's a lot of vehicles. So like when we talk about having 86 vehicles and the police only have 36 and they're running them daily, I just am trying to figure out, like, that's a lot of vehicles. You know what I mean? So are some of them like, I don't know if the police chief takes his car home or whatnot, but do we have that in most departments?
Doesn't leave correct.
There's only
I know.
there's only a handful of people that even have authorization to do that, and those are emergency personnel.
Okay.
But in terms of all other town fleet, the town fleet does not leave town.
Okay.
I will say, there are
Because the gas
corners,
amount's up too, that's why I
there
wondered.
are corners around like Bellingham and stuff where you're gonna drive around, and obviously they're gonna go through another town in some of those roads, but it's not like trucks are driving to like Orleans or like
Plain Ridge.
Marlboro.
No one's parking at Plain Ridge?
But I'm not sure that's the issue. I think the issue is,
There's one that goes out of town every day, and that'd be the water quality testing.
Oh, yeah.
They
Right.
gotta drop off the test.
Right.
The same way, that's not the only one.
And the
So
only
the
reason
senior
I
center-
ask is because when I look at the years, the purchase years, like, there's a lot of newer vehicles, you know what I mean? So I'm just looking at that, and then is it something that we look at, like, do we not have the maintenance staff?
nope. Jay?
Okay.
Hi,
Why don't we have Jay?
I'm Jay Stearns, I'm the fleet manager.
And I only asked you because we talked about this with the fire truck, when we were buying the new fire truck, about what the maintenance looks like, and the car wash, and all this other
Discuss your whole protocol
stuff.
and system of how you do maintenance and stuff.
Yeah, so when you talk about the 80, I did.
Just did.
I did.
Yeah, he introduced himself, yeah.
Sorry. So we do have some vehicles that leave town. The senior center bus leaves town.
Right.
We have obviously the treatment plant vehicle that leaves town. Most of the other vehicles stay in town. The
Okay.
86 vehicle count strictly for the DPW, there's a couple that are excavators in there.
Yeah,
There's a
I saw
couple that
that. Mm-hmm.
are front-end loaders and other equipment. So because we have 86 vehicles, they don't get used every single day.
Right.
Because some of them are specialty vehicles. We have catch basin trucks
Yep.
specifically for catch basin sweepers that go out and sweep when the
Yep.
contracted services aren't done. There are some newer vehicles,
Oh, that's a
but we're
contractor.
behind on life cycle, believe it or not. I see where you're saying that we have some vehicles that have newer years to them, but we're well behind. We have vehicles that are 1998s
Yeah.
that we're still running on a annual
And
basis.
do you have like a schedule, a replacement schedule, like the tech director has a replacement schedule?
I would love to have a schedule, but we can't stick with it because we get declined on replacements sometimes, so we fall out of a life cycle. So I would like to, we should be replacing
one large truck per department per year. Like if it was grounds and highway
Yeah.
and water and sewer, we should be replacing one new truck each year. When you don't do that, the next year, you
Right.
have to replace two. So these trucks, they don't last. We have a lot of trucks, like we're running into a point now, we can't weld rust. So we have frames that are rotting, the fire department
Yeah,
had one.
right.
But we have some down the DPW that are suspect. And we're doing the
Okay.
best we can to keep them going, but we have 3 technicians with 300 pieces of equipment.
Okay.
And we maintenance all of our vehicles as far as services, oil
And are
changes.
you the only one?
I'm sorry?
Are you the only one who does all this maintenance?
No, I have 3 technicians.
Oh,
I'm the
okay.
fleet manager. I have a working foreman and 2 technicians.
Oh, okay.
But with 3 technicians, you assign 100 pieces of equipment per technician, and that's a lot to do. So we are strictly reactive. We have no proactive other than oil changes. We can't take trucks apart to do some periodic inspections that we should be doing,
Yep.
so.
Okay,
Yep.
that's helpful. I'm good for now.
Can I follow us on that? Do you have any replacements in the operating budget for next year? Or are we like strictly reliant on capital for
Capital.
any vehicle replacement?
Capital.
Thanks.
For the record, we got no capital equipment this year.
I recall.
Oh, yeah, no, I got $10,000 to fix the
Appreciate
fuel
that.
pumps. I'm just gonna remind you of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Is there any relationship with Tri-County and some of their departments? They have auto body, they have carpentry, they have...
I've
other things.
hired co-op students multiple years.
Yeah.
We don't have that in the budget right now.
But are there some projects, because I've used Votech schools to do some projects for me. Are there projects that you can ask them to help you with?
Absolutely not.
You know, like building projects?
Because the reason why we don't do that, so when you get in your vehicle, it's your vehicle, it's your choice to get in the vehicle. We assign town employees with a vehicle, so we're telling them that that's what they have to use. So if we're giving them a vehicle that we don't have certified technicians repairing or maintaining, we're putting our employees at risk, just because I can't speak to what they're capable of.
So I should have asked this on the building side, the facility side. Do we use Tri-County at all to do some projects?
Occasionally, we do.
Because
They're
it's free, except for the materials.
No, in the past, we've done projects with them. Since the pandemic, we were hoping that they would have done the project behind the senior center, the awning that we had just built a couple years ago, but they're super backed up themselves, like 2 or 3 years deep. But we do inquire, the building commissioner has got a great relationship with them. We do take advantage of them, it's a great experience for them. To your point, it's just the materials generally. I will say, when the senior center, also we use Tri-County, when the senior center had a gap with the chef that was down there, Tri-County did fill in for us. So we do have a relationship with them, and we do try to partner on a lot of things. So, we try to do what we can, but, sometimes they have a lot of orders, and they have a lot of stakeholders.
As again,
It's a great
that's for
thing.
two purposes, but I
Yeah.
appreciate it, thanks.
Anybody?
First off, thank you for putting the assumptions of gas and diesel in the narrative. Just out of curiosity, are we buying that retail, so are we super sensitive to changes in prices, or is this like some sort of contracted deal where we have some rate for a period of time on fuel?
Kathy can explain that, because sometimes it's, we try to buy in the consortium, but getting the consortium to buy at different times is very, very difficult.
We work through the Norfolk County Procurement Group, and the Norfolk County Procurement Officer goes out to bid for the county so we can buy fuel through this agreement. And historically, we lock in, like we pre-buy at different times during the year, and it's based on fixed price adders and however they come up with the calculations. But we historically have done really well locking in the prices and pre-buying. You have to buy in 42,000 gallon increments, and diesel, historically, we used about 30,000 gallon, that's inching up per year to like 35, so we could only lock in or pre-buy 21,000. And so some of the year you're buying at market price, but our market price is a little lower because we do have this agreement and this contract. So So we're not paying what you're paying at the pump. And this year in particular, we were doing great because market price was so low. And so every spring, we typically lock in for the next fiscal year coming up. The contract goes September 1 through August 31, and so that you have to purchase fuel for that period of time and take delivery of whatever you purchase, so you don't want to overcommit. But this particular year, we're not locked in yet because, of course, we're working on locking in, and then, of course, this whole Iran situation happened. So the prices have gone up, so we're not locked in yet for next year. The timing was just terrible. But we're waiting and hoping, and prices will go down, and we'll lock in for next year's budget.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's not the largest line item in here. I think it was like $440,000.
Right, but it can
that could
be
be
so
plus or
located.
minus
Right,
like
it can really be.
$150K on either side,
Yeah.
depending how things
Right.
shake out.
But so far this year, we're doing well because we're so low, and now if we have to pay high for a few months, we have the capacity in the budget because prices were so low.
Yeah, and then we got to
So
go
we should
find
be good
somewhere
this
else
year,
to.
And then hopefully we'll be able to lock in for next year, for at least a portion of what we need.
Gotcha.
So we're like really all over that, we try to be. It's not easy.
So you had up there a couple of schedules about repairs and ongoing maintenance of certain roads and whatever. Do you have a list of that? Like, these are, 10 streets you're gonna start working on to?
Oh, yeah.
You do? And do
I
you-
can
like,
provide you that. I've had that list, and we haven't made a dent on it.
Yeah,
We-
made a dent
Curtis,
on it.
just maybe the pavement management program, like the 5-year, just for everybody's same information, how we do the 5-year road conditions every 5 years?
Sure, so I started this a long time ago. I asset management everything, whether it's equipment or roads, and so about 15 years ago, actually probably longer than that, but 18 years ago, we started, one of the first ones, we looked at every road in the town, and we went out and we put a value on it, and where we wanted to be, and where that was, and then how much it would cost to get there.
Okay.
And roughly speaking, and it's all online, you can go to the town website, and we keep the latest one up there. But it'll show you, and I think I've given you different numbers out there, it's roughly, we're about 38 million behind where we want to be, and that's what's established, like what the folks would like in town for, good roads. And then to catch up, we needed about 3.7 million a year, and we're not anywhere near that now, particularly without the road improvement, or the water line improvements, so we fixed the roads afterwards.
So like, for the next quarter, you have these 5 streets identified you're gonna work on. Where I'm heading, do you know where I'm heading on this one?
Nope.
You have no idea. It's an idea to market the department. You contact that neighborhood and say, we're gonna go up there to help you out. The idea of starting, communicating a sense to, show something, it's just an idea.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Tom.
You mean?
I'm guessing your road hasn't been done soon, but or recently, right? But, so maybe just a quick minute on marketing while we've got an
It's a way to
audience.
sell yourself.
No, but, well, we do that. We do a neighborhood meeting. So when you hear Doug come up, the water sewer superintendent, and Carlos, we have a pretty meticulous 20-year history. When we do the water main, people love the water main because it's obviously updated infrastructure, but they also know within a couple of years, the road's gonna be repaved.
Yeah.
So we do those neighborhood meetings, and we go out there and do a hearing. So we do a little bit of that, and
But
that's why I
not
was
the minor
joking.
stuff. This is the housekeeping type
Right,
of stuff.
that's why I was joking, saying your
Yeah.
road maybe hasn't been done in a while, because
Right.
you haven't been invited to one of the neighborhood meetings. But we do try to get out there and
It's
do
the
that
idea,
stuff.
I mean, just, as the idea that we're trying to sell ourselves to the community, that we're doing all these things. And look at, this is what we're spending money on, be prepared on, the next 2 months or so, get ready.
I appreciate that, and we'll definitely, with all the staff here, try to encourage everybody to do more of that. And one other point I'd make with the water main and the road work, we condition in, obviously, we're gonna do the roads that are most in need, the ones that are the worst condition. But we also try, and our staff does a great job of trying to hit different sections of the community, right?
Yeah.
You don't wanna spend all the money in one section where one area of town, and they have maps. Kate in the back has story maps that you could look at endlessly about the different roads and water mains and sewer improvements that we've done in different neighborhoods. So they've done a good job over the years trying to spread it, because remember, this is a community of 28 square miles. This is a very, very large geographic community, and so there's neighborhoods all over the place. So it is something else we've tried to do over the years. The pandemic did give us all of that ARPA money. We spent like 80% of all of our federal stimulus money on infrastructure. And you'll see on the council goals this year, they have another 5-year water main plan to look at next year to try to get back on that track after a little bit of a peak and valley here in the last 6 years. So, thank you.
Two things I'd like to just add. So we did try an override for roads about 11 years ago.
2014.
Yeah. So about 11 years ago, and that, it was very close, that was a lot of public outreach when we talked, Gary, about the different roads and different things, but that didn't pass, and it was by a small majority. And then one thing I will pass the town on when we talk about ARPA money, some towns couldn't spend their money. Well, we spent it for them, because it came up to the end and they said, people that have roads ready, we got some money from
We got
other
extra
towns.
money.
Carrie, and I always have a list, whenever you give me money, I'll spend it. I like building stuff, okay? But we went very active and
It
went.
was Amy,
Yeah?
Deputy Town Administrator,
Yeah.
went out and got extra. So the towns that didn't spend money, like Brookline,
Yep.
we had all our money spent, and so they went out and said, oh, there's some more millions that are available, and we'll give it to the towns that are ready to go, and we ended up getting another $250,000. So you can thank somebody, a friend from Brookline, next time you see them. Or Wellesley.
My area was the recipient of the water thing, Sherman Avenue, and there were several meetings on the street, and Mike Maglio, I think he's here tonight, came and answered the questions, and it was good outreach.
Oh, yeah, no,
We at least knew what was gonna happen and when it was gonna happen. It happened on time, I mean. Okay, more questions?
There's always more questions. So,
And always more answers from Brutus.
no, we'll see. So, you said that your budget was cut 400,000 last year, right? What did you cut that out of? Or what came out?
There's a lot of small items, but the majority was in the roads. The money to go fix the crack ceiling and chip seal was in the operating budget.
Okay. And same question to you. So did you mention that you have the same staff that you've kind of historically always had?
Correct.
Okay. So when all the other departments were getting hacked, your department didn't lose any staff?
What about, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, what about the summer help?
Yes. Summer help.
So you,
Yeah, we cut back.
We also are down, we used to have 8 grounds employees and 8 highway employees, and because of what happened with stormwater, we moved 2 of the grounds employees to stormwater, which is an enterprise fund, but they do stormwater work, they're not doing grounds work, they're not doing mowing, so we are down 2 grounds employees, and we've never been able to add them back. We still have the same count, but they're in different capacity, so we did technically lose them.
okay, so there was a new department created?
Yeah, the stormwater department, which is,
Yep.
it's new work and different.
The enterprise fund.
Right, okay.
We're down 2 there.
I thought that, just so, I thought you just said that was just a reallocation, though.
No, but it came with a new tax that we're now all paying.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
So it was like you could almost think of it as a net new entirely department of like.
It was.
New revenue came in,
Right.
people got moved there, but they if you were keeping this department apples to apples, they're not part of it. So they got
But-
moved from in this department to
But some
out
of
this
those, weren't some of those things already embedded in your operating budget for
Correct.
stormwater?
Yeah.
Right, so it was just a shift. So it was already in the operating budget. We
So-
just took it out of operating and made it a enterprise.
So about 1.1 million or so was up until FY, Ryan, you were correct. So up until about FY '24, which is when you saw the roads number go up, right, up to 600,000, there was about 1.1, 1.2 million, Kathy, in stormwater-related costs. Before the MS4 permit, it was like in a phased approach. Just for the record, many people probably don't realize the town of Franklin sued the EPA 15 years ago over this. We did. And what we got out of that were some minor concessions to delay the implementation of the permit, the MS4 permit, which is the tax, the enterprise fund. Why was that a victory? Because it gave us some credit for the money that we had been spending in the past. and some of the work that we had done on stormwater, which dates back to like 2007 or so. Franklin has always been a leader on the stormwater issue. We saw this coming years ago. But Ryan's correct. It took the 1.1 million, embedded that plus some additional money into that enterprise fund, which freed up about 1.2 million in operating budget capacity. That, we did two things that year, as a matter of fact. One was we invested in roads, and one, at the suggestion of Natalie, actually, we actually took out and bumped up the snow and ice budget. The snow and ice budget way back,
Thank you, Natalie.
well, it was a big deal. It was like 800, it was like.
Yeah, no, that was a tiny budget when I started, that I was like, I don't get it, yeah.
The snow and ice budget used to be nothing like this, and we used to use 750 to 800,000 in free cash every single year on snow and ice, and that was when there was real snowstorms, when we were really using it. That was our standard practice up until maybe maybe the pandemic.
Until it stopped snowing.
Until it stopped snowing, and then these rumors of climate change came in, and we were never going to have snow again, and obviously that, Mother Nature, spit on that a little bit. But, when you go back, there was that transfer of that operating capacity, but that did free up for a couple of years some additional revenue to invest in snow and ice and in road maintenance, and obviously those issues have been, cut over the last couple of years.
So, I wasn't done. I just want to finish this one. So, my last question is about the enterprise accounts.
Sure.
So, when the money that goes into those enterprise accounts, I understand you can only use those funds for certain purchases, right?
Correct.
So for the water enterprise, you can only buy water things.
Water expenses.
With with that account, right? So, but those accounts have significant money in them. Is the general fund its own? There's a general fund.
Yep.
And then there's a water, there's a sewer, solid waste, and a stormwater.
And, yes.
That's correct.
Okay. So when we need to buy new vehicles, does it come out of those accounts? Okay. So when we talked about how we're in a bit of danger because there's a bunch of things a bunch of vehicles we might need to redo, they would come out of these accounts related to whatever that is, a water truck?
Generally speaking, Jay might prove me wrong, but the vehicles, like if it's a sewer truck, if it's a water truck, it's usually, they're fine, because there is money in those funds to buy it. It's mostly the general fund type trucks, vehicles that, what's that?
What are you talking about?
No, she was asking about.
I know exactly what she's saying, but what she's asking is, so when there's a truck that is when a truck is used unilaterally for sewer, like the Vector truck, that comes exclusively out of the sewer fund. However, just like salaries, if there's a 2-ton dump truck and it is used multi-purpose across different purposes, what you will see in our capital plan is they will say the truck is 200,000. They will put 50% from the general fund free cash, and then they will use the apportionment from sewer and water or stormwater. So you are correct. We do use money from those accounts to pay for those vehicles when they go across different, different disciplines. If the truck, again, is exclusively for unique, like a Vector truck, just for sewer, then it's all sewer.
Right. I feel like I have a follow-up question. So when we do the come around again version of this budget where everybody comes in with their little wish lists, yours comes strictly out of this?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
The requests for,
The capital trucks, depending on the use of the truck. So you have to first start with what is the apparatus, what is the vehicle, then you have to say, what are we using it for? Right? There are some trucks that are 12-month trucks that they're going to use for snow plowing, they're going to use for water, they're going to use for sewer, they're going to use for grounds, they're going to use for highway. So if they're cross-department, meaning enterprise, they'll apportion out the cost. So we may buy a dump truck for 200,000, but we may use 35,000 of sewer money, 35,000 of water retained earnings, and then the other 130,000 or whatever the number is comes out of the free cash allocation. Exactly. So it's split up, apportioned. So to your point, we do buy trucks and apparatus for water and sewer exclusively out of those accounts. You're correct. We do use the capital money in those accounts to pay for vehicles, just like we do with staff.
But sometimes some of it comes out of the regular free
Yes.
cash, like the
Absolutely.
Chromebooks and the other stuff that we're
Correct.
talking about.
Correct. If
So-
they're not used for water and sewer and stormwater, if those vehicles or those apparatus are not used for water, sewer, and stormwater, then those costs would come out of the free cash allocation. You're exactly right.
So why wouldn't they come out of the general fund?
Well, we're back to the conversation, and you'll get into this with police and fire as well, right? We don't have any vehicle purchasing out of the general fund. We don't purchase any vehicles out of the general fund in the operating budget.
Okay.
All of our fleet is I'm trying to go through my head in case I'm forgetting a small item here or there. All of the apparatus that Jay maintains, I can't think of one that comes out of the operating budget. It's all capital. All free cash or retained earnings from water, sewer, and stormwater.
Okay. I think that that's important because we are talking about, in this budget, having to use our remaining $2 million in free cash to shore up the budget, right?
Right.
So that we have the things that we have.
Correct.
But then we're also talking about how in the future, we already know about all these other things like the Chromebooks, there's all those other things that come in from that tier 1 list, right?
Yep.
And then we're gonna have even more of those when we have a bunch of trucks that don't come out. So I'm concerned about the long-term impact of using that $2 million now. I understand that this
Yeah.
is a rough thing to say, but if we use that now, it's almost like we're paying our car payment with our savings account.
That's
And
right.
that's not smart to do.
No.
So you pay your roof caved in, you pay that with your savings account because you didn't expect it. But if we're using our savings account to make our car payments and our cell phone payments, this is a dangerous road that we're about to go down when we have a very big bunch of very expensive trucks that are intending to come out of that budget that everybody's going to be trying to dip into. If we think we're in trouble now, this,
It's
Guys,
really,
Shannon, I will tell you really
We're in
quickly, for
danger.
Brutus, for Chief Allen, for Chief Lynch, and Carlos, and basically any department head that's been here for 15 or 20 years, you are now caught up to date with the problem that we've had for decades. That
Great.
is exactly it. I couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, I mean, when I wrote in the narrative, and I think I said it last night or the night before, I went back to my opening executive statement, and I said in there blatantly, you know, the choices are there. You're either making layoffs, right, to personnel, cutting expenses, cutting costs, cutting schools, cutting services, direct human capital, right? Direct people that go out and do the work that we all care about. And as a short-term strategy, you know, I said, just my opinion, my value, that making sure that our human capital is protected, because the vehicles are gonna be no good without the people. The services don't get done without the people, but the consequence of that is exactly what you just said, is that some of the vehicles that we want to buy, or our fleet, to stay on Jay's schedule, or whatever the police schedule, or the fire truck issues, all of that stuff is for this fiscal year at least, possibly, a consequence of that. And so you're right, you're making those kind of choices, and that's exactly where the line, that's where the rubber meets the road. You're 100% right.
and so my last
Yeah.
follow-up to that, not to you, is if nothing changes, nothing changes. So if we keep doing this like we have, I understand that your point, and you've said this back when we were doing the other budget hearings, and before we did the overrides, and you said, I've been raising this flag, I've been raising this flag. We've raised all the flags, but now we need to do something with that flag. That's what I'm trying to suggest, is that if we just keep doing this, and we just keep patching it, we're eventually going to run out of roadway. So we have to do something now. We can't just keep patching this. We have to change something about the way we do this process.
You were spot on, Shannon, and I would just point out and ask the question of the Finance Committee, and hopefully maybe some of the newer members, I hope it's now clear why we asked for an override.
It
And I'm not-
wasn't
and I'm-
ever
and-
not clear
No.
to me.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, like, well.
I just
that-
want to be clear about that.
Okay, well,
But it's not clear,
yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, that, the pie has never been big enough to do everything that everybody wants. And so, and I'm not saying it to you directly, I'm saying again for Cameron, for the board, and for everybody, like, that's why the town asked for an override last 2 years, right? I mean, that's why we made the cuts in '24, before the schools redistricted, then they redistricted, we saved the 3.5 million, right? They went through that process, came back the year later. But I think now, to your point, you're right. Now something has to change and something has to give. Couldn't agree with you more, but I just want to make sure everybody understands, and I think you just answered it, but that's why the town council asked the community last year for an override, was to not be in the position where we have to choose between human capital, public safety, school teachers, and town fleet, cruisers, safety gear, and all the other stuff that we're talking about. I mean, this is it.
but with all due respect,
Yeah.
the reason the community doesn't think that's real
Yeah.
for a lot of people that I talked to, and I understand that it was a close margin, the vote was a close margin, right? But you're not counting all the people that didn't come out to vote. All those people that didn't come out to vote are basically a no vote. So it was actually a pretty huge swing, if you think about it in terms of all the people that didn't think it was important enough to come out and vote for it. They abstained. So it's a much bigger problem than we're giving it credit for. But I think a lot of the people that I spoke to and the people that I tried to get to see the other side of it, they think there's no problem because we keep finding the money. I'll put that in air quotes. I know there's going to be for the video, but it's in air quotes for the audio as well. We keep finding it, quote unquote, because we keep using our savings account to fill these holes.
Yep, absolutely.
So we have to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Anyone choose to follow that?
Are we talking about the enterprise accounts now? Or are we just,
We talk about
I did
if it
bring
has
it.
BBW related?
I use it too much. Is this yours, Steve?
The head shake, just brutal.
okay, the enterprise accounts.
Tom's gonna take it.
My understanding is that we can, they're self-sufficient, the enterprise accounts, and you can build up some reserves for things that you need, okay? Question I have, are we properly charging the enterprise accounts for all expenses associated with the employees? What I mean by that is I go through this budget, I see your salaries, okay? I don't see any allocation of fringe benefits into that department. So the idea that there's an opportunity to take the fringe benefits of those employees, pay it out of those funds and reimburse the general fund.
That's
That's
the
carry,
indirects.
it's indirect. It's called indirects, yes.
Do we do that?
Yes, we do.
We do that, okay. So then if I look at the enterprise accounts and the revenue that's coming in, I look at that as being $2 million, right? That's on the sheet here?
There's 3 entries.
All right. If I go into the expenses for the enterprise accounts and add up the salaries, I go on the expenses and I see the expenses for the enterprise accounts are 19 million on a direct cost basis. If I was to factor in the salaries, I just did a quick math, came up with 6.5 million. If I use a 20% factor for fringe benefits, I'd come up with $1,200 or so. $1 million. Can you move $1 million of expenses to the enterprise funds and get paid?
No.
I thought we were
I
going
have
to
to keep
indirect.
$1 million in reserves, and then we have water and sewer projects that, for debt and interest, that I also have.
I think he's asking about, like,
Oh.
what's the
you
total
wanna-
indirect?
What's the indirect allocation to the enterprise accounts? Because if I see that, I see that the general fund is subsidizing the enterprise accounts when it shouldn't be.
Okay, so I'm going to provide you with the breakdown of the indirects and how I calculate them?
Yes, please.
You got it.
Okay.
I can, and we can talk.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be
Yeah,
really
okay.
helpful. And
The
then-
idea that the fully allocated cost does get reimbursed. And I understand putting money out there for some capital
Yeah,
projects, don't get me wrong, but
No, I know
if
you.
we want to make it what it is,
I will do that. And they are reviewed by Department of Revenue and auditors, so there's, of course, limitations. I'm just disclosing it. But
my
I
experience
will
with the
definitely
state,
send that to you.
10% always works.
Okay, anybody else? Can we send Brewis back to his DPW garage?
Whatever you want, George, you like.
Go back to the garage.
Thank you very much,
Thank
both of
you.
you.
Thank you for your time.
Sean Bruce.
Thank you for
Thanks,
your
Kathy.
time.
Great job, Jay. Thanks so much. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate you popping.
Wherever you want to go.
Now, Miss Chief Lynch and cohorts, your turn.
Thanks again.
I got it up there.
I want to publicly thank the chief for letting me go first, because I got to fly out. 3 in the morning.
Where are you going? Someplace good?
I'm going to see my kids, they go to school in Mississippi.
In where?
Mississippi State.
I'm sorry.
Safe travels, bro.
I know I said safe travels.
I get that. Thank you. I think I got that.
I don't really care.
See the button? Mute button.
No.
You have to hold it down.
When you're ready, we're
Yeah.
figuring out the mute button, but you're on. You don't have it.
All right, Thomas Lynch, widely known as TJ, that's what, call me Tom and I won't answer. This is my deputy chief, James West, and unfortunately, she's sick, but I've got her on text if need be. Laura Graver, our business manager, who is really the one that makes everything work for us down at the PD. So our budget is probably one of the few that is, it's level service +2. So we submitted a budget we're looking to get the 2 offices back that we lost at the beginning of fiscal year '26. Where when we were at 58 sworn, and we reduced to 56.
I'll set you up. How many were you authorized in 2002?
2,000, I'll give you, we were authorized that was the answer to your question. The only time that the Franklin Police Department actually had the proper number of officers to police the community with the number of residents they had call for service volume was in the year 2000. We were budgeted for 54. We only had 50. We only made it to 50. The economy started to drop pretty bad. We never hired those additional 4 officers to bring us to 54. We stayed at 50. And then we dropped like a stone for several years. In the year 2016, when I became the chief, we were at 46 full-time sworn, which meant we were 8 short of what we were budgeted for 16 years prior, and 4 short of what we actually had. I can tell you that the town did not shrink during that 16-year time period. The town grew, the call for service volume was raised, and we made do with what we had. It wasn't until fiscal year '23 that we were actually at 54. So it took us 23 years to get back to where we were, budget-wise, in 2000. And then in fiscal year '24, we received 4 additional officers, which was really the first increase when we went to 58. And then we lost half that increase when the following year
we will cut $210,000 out of our budget, plus $40,000 out of the benefits budget, to equal the $250,000 reduction for the budget that was finalized by the town council for fiscal year '26.
So how many do you have right now?
56. Oh, and by the way, the police department has been fully staffed with actually 56, or whatever number of sworn officer complement we have, our civilians, which are 5, 2 executive assistants and the 3 clinicians, for 9 months in total in the last 10 years. I've hired 44 police officers since I've been chief.
Since 16?
Yep. 44 police officers, the 2 executive assistants have both been hired. 1 replaced somebody that was actually doing the job for 40 years, Kevin Ryan, and the 3 clinicians. I've promoted every single, 2 deputy chiefs, 4 lieutenants, all 9 sergeants, and every single specialist is somebody that I put into the position that they're in.
Does that turnover trend continue?
It should slow down. The department's young.
Because of 4x10?
The department's young, so as long as we still are a place where people want to work, I don't anticipate a lot of people leaving to go somewhere. There will be some retirements coming up, obviously, that will have to be replaced. But hiring is difficult right now. There's just not a lot of people that are interested in being in law enforcement for a number of different reasons. And, with that, as well as, some other issues, but it's become hard. I mean, the last person we hired, we publicized it for almost 8 weeks, and we only got 3 people to apply. And out of those 3, 1 had already been picked up by the time we finally ended up doing the interviews. We got a good candidate, and we did hire someone. You'll meet them a couple weeks. But it's not like it was in the past. It's just getting more difficult.
Jamie has mentioned a couple of times the 4x10 as a good thing, if not a great thing.
Yeah, the 4-on, 4-off, 10-hour shift schedule.
Just to fill in people, can you, a shortened version of what 4x10 does or
Sure.
doesn't do?
And everything that everybody's looking for, you can either come to the meeting, Zoom in, or whatever you want to do. But next week, we're doing a whole thing for the town council because they requested it. I know the fire department is as well. I'm going to do everything from the history to what our future challenges will be, soup to nuts.
So you can practice tonight?
Sure. All right, so the 4-on, 4-off, 10-hour shift schedule, how did it come to be? The town had decided that they were going to join a regional being for dispatch services, the Metacom and Emergency Communications Center. At that time, there was talk of we're going to lose all of our dispatch staff. So we had a total of 9, 6 full-timers, 3 part-timers. They were all going to be basically let go, whether they went to the MEC or not, whatever that is. The question was, well, what were we going to do because we were losing all those bodies? And one of the things that the town, for whatever reason, it wasn't brought to their attention, was they don't just answer a phone and use a radio. They provide a lot of other service, security for the station, prisoner watch. It's a laundry list. I mean, basically 4 pages, 8 by 11. So the town at one point was thinking of having maybe some of the elderly work off their tax write-offs down at the police station. That wasn't going to happen. They also talked about that we were going to close the police station and basically go dark, which meant that when you came to the police station for anything, you would get in through the first doors, and then you would be inside a vestibule, and the door would be locked. You'd have to ring a bell, and you'd reach the Metacom and Communications Center, and then they would end up calling us over the radio, and then someone would come to service you. That's what Rentham does, and there's nobody that actually likes it. It's awful. For a department of our size, for the number of residents, it was like, there's no way the residents of Franklin are going to go for something like that, so we can't do that. So I went to the town administrator, Jeff Nutting at the time, Jamie was his assistant, and I basically said, we're going to need more bodies to be able to make sure that we can staff the front desk, and we've just been behind for so long that we need them. He says, what do you need? He said, $780,000. They laughed. no way we
He
can do
laughed. He did.
it. He said, there's no way we can do it.
Yeah.
He said, Plan B. What's Plan B? We go to a 4-on, 4-off, 10-hour shift schedule. Most people don't know about it in New England because just like New England is where everything started, we're the last ones to give anything up. You will not find an 8-hour shift schedule for police anywhere other than in New England. Nobody else does it. I had just gotten back from the FBI National Academy, had been dealt with a lot of people. One of the projects I did was how do we fix this issue? So we came up with the 4-on, 4-off, we worked with the unions, and we were able to get 5 more officers because we used a combination of different things, such as the officers will work 120 hours less on a 4-on, 4-off, 10-hour schedule than they do on a 4-on, 2-off, 8. Did we give them 120 hours off? No, we didn't. We negotiated 20 hours, but they owe us 100 hours that they have to do outside their scheduled shifts. What do we use that for? Training. 72. The other 28 hours are for other things like shift work, so we don't have to pay the overtime for it. So we were able to reduce overtime accounts, including a majority of our overtime that we use for training, and we put that towards salaries. That was a hell of a lot less than $780,000. That allowed us to increase the number of officers that we had by 5. It wasn't optimum, because we needed more to be able to get to the 2 over the minimum. At that point, we were at 28 in patrol. Today, we're at 34, so it took several years to get to where we're at as far as being the optimum number of officers needed for the patrol division. But that's primarily why we ended up going. Was it easy? No. That's why I know a lot of people haven't done it. I've explained it. I have a whole zip drive that I send out to chiefs that inquire about it. I've sat with people, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to be able to go to that. Cops don't like change. The only other thing I don't like is things staying the same.
Okay, questions?
In your narrative, if I read it correctly, you were stating that on the recruiting side, that you're bringing in more experienced officers as opposed to recruiting from putting individuals through the academy. That creates another issue in that you bring in a person at a much higher rate. And I think you also said in your narrative, by not putting an officer through the academy, you can't mold him to what you would like to have, I guess. So what's that differential of bringing people at a higher rate in versus putting someone through the academy and getting that officer on the street?
Okay, so when you're...
And I'll have a follow-up after that.
Sure. Great question. When you're already short staff, you don't have the personnel numbers that you would like to have or that you would really need, or when you're replacing something, usually it's a patrol officer in the patrol division. If you're going to hire somebody to go to the academy, it's about a 3-month process from the time you post it. You bring people in to basically interview for the job. They go through all the pre-employment tests, like a psychological, a medical physical, etc. 3 months to get them into an academy. Now you have to make sure that they have all this done, they're ready to go, and you can actually get them a slot into one of the academies throughout the Commonwealth that might be running a class. That takes about 3 months to get them in. Once they're in, 6 months that they're at the academy. When they come out and they've never worked, 14-week field training. So for that entire period of time, there is a slot in the schedule that has nobody in it. They're not counted in the rotation, there's just nobody there.
But you're paying them, right?
Huh?
You're paying them, and you're paying the academy, correct?
I would pay them while they're in the academy, but they do nothing for us when it comes to the schedule and having the minimum, there's a minimum number of officers that we always have to have out on the street. And when you're down somebody, then usually if you're only 1 over in that particular shift, you're at the minimum, which means when people use their benefited time off or somebody else happens to get injured while they're working, or they get ill, or they have a child and they use in family medical leave, et cetera, you're paying overtime. When you take a transfer, let's say somebody that has 5 years on the job. When they have 5 years on the job and you put it out there, you get an experienced officer who's already been through the academy, who's worked somewhere for that 5-year period of time. That process usually takes about the 3 months, but then they're walking in the door, not going to the academy. And they do not have to do a 14-week field training, because we're not teaching them how to be a cop. We're just trying to make sure that they understand how we want them to be a cop, and they get the town. And then they're on the schedule.
So the way I was reading it, you preferred, maybe I misread it. I thought you were preferring to put someone through the academy.
When I have proper staffing levels, I would like to put somebody through the academy. When we have enough bodies to be able, when we do that. But like I've said before, only 9 months out of 10 years have we actually been at full staff.
Okay.
So it becomes it's time beneficial to hire a transfer than it is to put somebody through the academy. I'm not adverse to it, but if we add the numbers, and we could, we'd put people through the academy.
You have. You have.
We have.
Some local.
Jalen Samuels just
Victoria
graduated from the
McVicker.
academy.
Yeah.
So when we can do it, we'll do it.
And, again, the idea that when certain officers are going to retire, so you have that timeline that you can start preparing for.
Well, yes, we put in an incentive into the collective bargaining agreement several iterations ago, that if they give us 9 months or more notice that they're leaving, then they can turn in their sick time and receive up to $100 per day. If they wait till the 6 months, it drops to $60. It's 60, whatever, and if you give us 3 months, it's less. So there's an incentive for them to give us 9 months. I wanted a year for the very reason I just said, but the union, basically, we had to negotiate, and it was 9 months. So you give us 9 months, usually most of them will give me a year anyway. Hey, listen, fiscal year just started, I'm leaving. Most of them will leave in July currently, because, they wait till they get all their time, in July 1, and then after the 4th of July holiday, et cetera, because they have to use their personal days, they end up leaving. If they give me a year, that's how we got jammed. I was told in advance that one of the officers was retiring. We were able to do that.
I just have 2 quick questions. So I noticed you have 3 vacancies, so 2 are the new ones that you're adding in, and then 1 is the one that we're going to meet in 2 weeks?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the vacancy, if you look on the control sheet, the vacancy, there are 3 vacancies. Of course, when this budget was created, we're talking months and months ago.
Yeah, I know.
The 2 vacancies that represent the restored officers, the vacancy number 2, right after Tyler Brabham, it's vacant, vacant, so the 104, 353.
Yep.
And we're hoping to put somebody through the academy, so it's 88,421.
Okay.
Those would be the 2. If you want to know the total amount, if
No, I
if
don't
we're
care.
denied the ability to get
Yeah.
the 2 officers, our salary budget would be reduced by $192,774, and our expenses would be reduced by $8,000 for a total of $200,774.
And then the other one is the one that you said we'll meet in 2 weeks?
Yes, you'll be
Filled
meeting
that.
Caleb McLean starts on the 19th.
Okay, perfect. And then my other question, oh, sorry. It's this one. My other question, sorry, is we've been asking people, because of the whole capital project, the capitals, and you having a lot of items in the capitals that should really be in the operating budget. So we're very optimistic that we're going to fix the budget and be able to put everything into the budget and remove it from capital. So Jamie gave us estimates yesterday about what that amount would be. So I just wanted to kind of, your thoughts. He had estimated that the police would need about $500,000 added into the operating budget to cover those expenses that you currently rely on through capital. Just wondering if that is an accurate amount, or if you felt it was less or more than that estimated $500,000.
Just give me 1 second.
And Jamie, that was like...
Say exactly
it's
what it is.
Yeah.
Police cruisers, but it was like the tasers and the body armor and the other
Right.
stuff too, right?
Yep, yep. And this year, he'll talk about the cruisers. This was
Light year,
this,
right?
yeah, it was a unique year.
Yeah.
Right? We don't, I think it was 3 cruisers this year,
We only had to go
but
to-
usually it's 5, right?
I printed out the calendar.
So, sorry. It's usually 5, and 1 costs, what, it's like almost 100,000? A little more than that, 100,000?
Yeah,
2, I think.
140,000 fully
That's
equipped.
for 2, right? Is that for 2? I think it's for 2.
Yeah, I think it was.
77,000.
I have the whole thing.
70s
Per.
Times five.
Right, so,
Two this
like,
year.
just use 100, it'll make the math easier. So we're saying, right now, we have a budget where we spend down to $151,000 left in the budget, but we know we need to spend $500,000 from the budget on police cruisers, or if it's another light year, which doesn't seem like that's how it works, but if it were, it would be 200,000, which we still wouldn't have. Like,
Right.
we'll not equal there.
Right.
We'll be,
But I just want to be clear, I've been here 11 budget cycles. We have bought police cruisers through free cash every year. So this is not like,
yeah, not saying it's abnormal, just pointing out
yeah.
the.
And
You want
this,
to know
and
why
you're,
that it's in capital? I've already made a statement about it. Because here's the thing, I've been with the department for 30 years as of last Friday. 25 of those 30 years, I've been the rank of lieutenant or above. So I've been in the back office for every decision that's been made pretty much over the last 25 years. It's a shell game. Way back when we didn't have any money, because we still don't, because we've been in a structural deficit for over 2 decades, what did they do? They took the money out of the operations budget for the cruisers and some of the other things, and they stuck it into capital. And what did it do? It made it so that you didn't have to go for an override. When we should have been going for overrides way back when, so that we don't need as big of an override or whatever else. That's what they did. So they took it out. There's still a line item that says police vehicles in our budget. And I won't argue with you that any of those things that are in our capital budget are not routine expenses. A lease for tasers should not be in the capital budget. You can debate about the cruisers, because cruisers, when I talk to all my Norfolk County peers, half of the towns have it in capital, half of the towns have it in the operations budget. The only reason that we need 3 cruisers this year versus the usual 5 is because, unfortunately, we had 5 accidents that resulted in 5 cruisers being totaled. 4 of the 5 accidents were not our fault. And 2 of the cruisers that got totaled, that would have been replaced this year, they're brand new. So they don't need to be replaced. So it's just an anomaly. For next year,
Yeah.
my capital request for cruises is $345,000. And overall, it's $439,248. In fiscal year '28, I need $499,238. These are estimates.
Can you go back to the 27 number? You're too quick.
27?
Yeah, the 4.
I need $345,000.
I got that.
$498 for the cruises,
Yep.
which is 4. Again, we don't ask for anything more than we need.
Yeah.
Because the town's broke. So why would we ask for more than what we actually need? So
Right.
we have a replacement policy. It has to do with the number of actual mileages on
Yep.
the car, and then you have to add 40% to that for idle mileage. You might leave your car out in front of your house for a little bit before you jump in it to go somewhere. Our people sitting on the side of the road, running radar, and so forth. And then there's also the years, because sooner or later, the salt and everything else that eats trucks.
Yeah.
But DPW has, well, it also does a number on the cars, everybody's cars. So we only ask, so next year, we're looking at, right now, 4, 345, 498,000, and then the total, we're looking at $13,000 for IT, almost 11,000 for the protective body armor, and then the 69,800 for the third year of the TASER lease. For a grand total of $439,248.
but when I say to your question, when you say kind of an earmark of what you need from police, why I round to 500,000 is because FY '28, '29, '30, once the lease on the tasers is up next year, that's going to be another 15, 10, 12%, you know, and so I'm just, when you're ballparking your math, I just want to make sure it's not the exact number. It's just trying to look out the long term and say, do you have that revenue to pay for that stuff?
And Chief, I feel like I appreciate, and I hope you do too, we're not really talking about cruisers so much as the shell game you're pointing out. The cruisers just happen to be the easiest to understand example of it, because you have enough that you need them every single year. So they have a stable baseline, and I think we've kind of like hit this point a number of times through a number of different meetings. I know you explained this exact thing, you know, to us in the Capitol meeting, and I don't think anybody's implying or saying that it was something you shouldn't have done at the time or should have done. It's like that was just done. Should or shouldn't, like, who cares? It's in the past. But I think what we're looking at now is more of a math problem. If we have $2 million right now in free cash, and we know we get, call it $4.5 million a year, roughly, right? And we use all the $2 million, it's depleting funds that we then had already kind of earmarked against certain things. So your cruisers are just a good example, but there's a fire truck that I think we gotta pay for at some point. There's, there's other large things that we also need to pay for, and we have another number of other things, kind of like the cruisers, like the Chromebooks. I think they're the other, like, easy one to talk about. It's really not a question about cruisers. It's just, do we spend all the money? We did the shell game to move the things over there, but now we're taking the money away from there. That doesn't really make a ton of sense. It's like, if we're saying, hey, move it over there because there's money over there, and it fixes a budget problem here, and it's kind of fine, then that's one thing. But if we're saying move the cost over there, but also rob the piggy bank over there, then what do? We can't buy cruisers, right? So I think the question I would ask back, and I don't like that I have to ask the question, and it's really not about cruisers, but knowing we have that problem, like, could you not add SROs this year for the purpose of knowing you could get cruisers? And I get that it's putting you in a bind, it's asking you to do something that doesn't staff you the way you want or need to be staffed, but it also then gets you a cruiser that you know you're gonna need. And like, I guess to me, we're in a position where we may have to say no to those cruisers at the capital request time because the bank's already been robbed there. So knowing that, would you rather like replace the cruisers now or have to live a year where you couldn't replace any cruisers, but have two officers and then have another year where we might have to do the same thing? Like we're not.
Because you're gonna take the free cash and do what with it?
We're putting it in to plug the budget now. Like effectively, like it's paying for these officers.
I'm 100%. I'm one person that does not like the raw Peter to pay Paul thing. I don't typically like that. I know the council has had a long-standing mandate that they would not end up using free cash and injecting into the budget, but I do believe in what Jamie has basically come up with as an opportunity to give people who are in new positions that they haven't had, 7 new counselors, a majority of you are pretty new as well, to kind of figure this thing out over the next 12, 14, 16 months. I think that is correct. I think it's insane that we don't have a deputy town administrator. I think it's absolutely insane. Why? Because, guess who's the interim town administrator while the town administrator is on vacation? And for 10 years, I've always joked with him, Jamie, would I want your job? No. But I like Jamie, so I'm gonna do it. Am I getting like a stipend for it or anything like that? Is it a big lift? No, but it's insane for, the fact that we're looking at, we have a $160 million company and we don't have a succession plan as to what's gonna happen next. And if you think you're just gonna hire somebody and they're just gonna waltz in and they're gonna be able to have all that knowledge, Jeff did the right thing. He hired Jamie several years before he was gonna leave. Jamie was able to get fully ingrained into the town. Every nuance, the whole 9 yards, and then smooth transition. So things like, something like that. The 2 offices, I want them back. I know there's a lot of people in town that like to see them back. I would like to see them go back to exactly where they were. Amanda, Ray, and Dave Gove and the dogs back in the schools. Things like that. I think this whole exercise, if I watched the entire 5.5 hours of Monday, I got through a little bit through the schools, but I ran out of time. You started the whole conversation with, we got to come up with a plan. I don't know if the plan included that, okay, we need to dive in, and you've dived in pretty deep. Is there a way that we can cut our way out of this? I think the answer is no. So if the answer is no, and there's a lot of people that are no votes, whatever, we need more revenue. I don't know, I'm not saying it's an override, but I can tell you right now, the 3-spoke wheel is basically property taxes, new growth, as well as the taxes we receive. It's state aid, and it's the fees that we bring in. We cannot fee our way out of this situation. We have raised fees several times in the last decade. I'm expecting the holy grail of all things being local aid to potentially end up getting hit this soon by the state of Massachusetts is broke. They're hurting out. They're hurting pretty bad too. And so I've already heard about some things that have been going on, like, reductions in overtime when it comes to the Massachusetts State Police. Never happens. It's April, and they're already starting to do stuff. Things like that just kind of force, kind of project out. They want to cut the JDP program, which is where most towns and cities, other than us, because we're using opera funds, end up getting the funding that they have for their mental health clinicians. Probably the single best thing that has happened in law enforcement in the 30 years that I've been on. But they're gonna cut it from 19 million to 4. That's in the Maura Healey's budget, the governor's budget. So when you add all those things, what do you got left? You got, we either new revenue, whether it be property taxes, because we're gonna raise them through a 2.5 override, or something else. But the only way we're gonna fix this whole thing is revenue. And if it's between officers and cruisers, I'll take the officers every day of the week. It's the reason we don't have body cameras. It's the reason that I don't come in asking you for other types of things, because I would rather have the personnel than the other things that we could need, because the personnel do the job, and the other things just make usually their job more efficient, or, help us out when it comes to liability-related things. And the things I don't need cut are the things that basically we have to worry about, which is, our 3 prongs: supervision, policy, and training. We're accredited, check off policy. We have one of the best training programs anywhere. And as far as supervision, we have, some of the, we train our people well, especially as, our supervisors. But I'm not trading bodies for cars.
Sure, understood, and thank you for, I'll say, answering the question as directly. I agree with your assessment. I don't think there is an override plausibility in time to help this year's budget. So it becomes is it next year's budget, or is it the year after that, even if you just assume it passes? Like, just assuming an override goes through and passes, it's to get us there, what do we do? And I hear your answer. I was just curious because, I guess in my mind, hiring a person to then maybe have to let them go at a failed override is not ideal, certainly. Buying a car, or not buying a car, doesn't have that human factor to it. You're not you buy the car, you didn't hire the person, then the override passes, you hire the person because you can keep them for the next, however long. But I get your point of you'd rather go the other way and risk it, and I think that shows some optimism in the town that hopefully people will realize that an override is needed. It's not an optional thing, it's a math thing at this point. So, okay, I don't want to have you come back for a capital request for cruisers and us say, well, the bank's empty, and have you be shocked by that. I think that's a choice we're making now, and that's okay. But I wanted to make sure you were aligned on that choice, as I'd rather pick officers now and risk that I might not be able to get my cruisers this year.
Well, the $2 million we already got the cruisers.
Yes.
We asked for 3
I'm
to
talking
go.
about the request you're going to make.
No, I know
next year.
I know what you're saying. If you're going to continue to do, rating of free cash to basically inject it into the operations budget, I see what you're saying. But what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is that Jamie's thing gives everybody. There's most likely I'll have 2 openings by the following. I've never been at full. 9 months at full staff. I have 2 people that might end up, taking a job with the Massachusetts State Police for the class that's supposed to start in June, if it still happens. There's probably there might be some retirements that are coming up. If that's the case, it's a lot, it's gonna make it easier if I can hire 2, even if we have the budget and still lose some, especially if I'm hiring transfers because I'm still short, versus we're at 56 and now I'm losing those bodies, which is just gonna make it even that much harder. And if we don't have the money, what I'm getting at is if nobody decides we don't do an override, or they decide not to raid, the free cash any longer, then so be it. We'd have to cut the 2.
Yep.
But I think in the long run, I think it gives people an opportunity to do exactly what you're doing. What is the answer? Where do we go from here? And if it is that we're going to go for an order, it's not going to be for 27. I would assume it would be for 28. I will do my part.
I hope it's for 28. I just think we need to build momentum, and there's 3 people, 4 people listening at the moment. And I'm not saying that this is how that happens necessarily. I think there's a lot of outreach mechanisms, but to change, I think the no votes Shannon alluded to, who were no by the fact that they did not come. They're also not here. They're the people here in the room and listening on Zoom and who watch it tomorrow and who watch it the next day. Those aren't the problem. Those people are engaged. And if they vote yes or no, actually doesn't matter. They voted, they cared, they went. Great, they had an opinion and they informed themselves. Our issue is the other group that's not showing up at all, right? That lack of engagement, shows that they don't see the problem. That's not a police problem, that's a town problem, for sure. And I mean, I got the answer to my question. I'm hopeful that we can do both. Like, I'd like to have you not have broken down cars and have people to drive them and have people at the schools. Like, I think that makes sense, but I think, the harsh reality is, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, but we still won't have override funds if we're voting in '28, but we have to say no cruisers this year because this year it's 2 million, but if we do the same thing again next year, it will be 4 that we would need. It would be all the free cash, because the rate we're growing isn't equal to the rate of free cash growth, because free cash isn't really growing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, it's just, if we don't bring in more revenue one way or another, then we're just gonna be on a cutting thing as we continue to go along. And the next thing that's getting cut is the community service unit, the SROs, they're all being cut. There won't be any. Because the department will not reduce the patrol division complement at 34 unless we have no other choice but to do that. And so it's not a fluff thing. I added to the community service unit in the last 10 years. It's a shame that we've had to reduce it in half already and probably reduce it to 0 if we get to fiscal '28 and we don't have any other revenue and we're going to be cutting. But that's what's next, because that's what's going to happen. The quality of life in this town is going to decrease. The services that we provide are going to decrease. If that's what they want, then that's what they're going to get.
The lights might only be 80% off. Yep. Understood.
Simple.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I only have a very quick question, very quick, which is shocking for me. If you were asked to put together a real budget, a budget that has all the things and doesn't have a shell game situation, would you be able to do that? Or
A what?
would you be able to put together a real budget?
Yeah, just take everything that's in capital for next year and throw it into what we would propose for fiscal year, the current fiscal year '27 budget. That's all you do. You'd have to add that 440.
500.
Yeah, you'd have to add about $500,000.
Can I just add? I would add to that, TJ, that we do really need another lieutenant, because we've expanded our whole department and added more patrol officers. That span of control is really tough. So we have an administrative, an operations lieutenant that's overseeing a lot more officers, and I think that would be probably a priority to add if we're talking ideal budget down the
Yeah.
road. Yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to go like, where
I think
should we
that's
be?
where we're going, yeah, right?
Yes, that's what I mean, a real budget of what not a magical budget of I would have 45,000 police officers, a real budget of you need a deputy, you need this many cars, you need this many tasers, that has everything in it, that if we could just say yes, you would get it. Could you put a budget together like that?
Yes, 63 police officers.
Okay.
Fully fund our 3 clinicians.
so yes.
Because we're basically, we have to come up with that money in fiscal
Right.
year '28. They're all set until fiscal '27. The ARPA grant's going to end. There's a couple of different things, but 63, I mean, just 10 communities, all similar size, average budget, fiscal '25. All right, this is fiscal '25 when we were at 58, because it's the only thing I can definitively get numbers for without having to make a ton of phone calls and all that, because people aren't as good as us putting the stuff up on the web as Franklin is. 8,946,000. That's the average budget when you take North Attleboro, Braintree, Dedham, Franklin, Marlboro, Milford, Natick, Needham, Norwood, Stoughton. The median was 8,589,000. Our budget was 7,348,000.
So yes.
So here's the deal. I'm not saying anything that any of the other people you haven't talked to already said, they've all talked about being less staffed and this and that. I think Jamie mentioned it was like the market, we're like the market basket. We're the poster child for lean government, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, the same thing. Our total community budget for that year was $157,865,000. Norwood, $181,690. Needham, $244,347. Natick, $195,439. So it's like everybody's in the same boat. And like I said, I've been here for 25 years in a command staff capacity. We're in. If you're looking for, if somebody, they're like, hey, we'd like to find a town that basically does a fantastic job, accredited. ISO 1, all the other awards that we get, public, the library, with all the stuff that they can do, our recreation department, and we can go on and on with the accomplishments that they've been able to do, and did it on a shoestring budget the way we have. But that's not going to continue if we have to continue to cut year after year after year, which is going to happen if we don't find some other way of bringing in revenue.
Right, so my question was just,
I'll
could
give
you
that.
put
want that
together a
budget? Yeah,
big budget?
Not a problem. It'll probably be similar to that.
That was it. It was a quick question, long
Yeah.
answer. That's not my fault.
Yeah, so one thing I'm trying to do is just reconcile kind of the results of last year's failed override, kind of with this budget, and of course, the big thing is the adding back of the two positions. And I think last year, we kind of made that clear ahead of time, like, hey, a no vote means reduce two staff in the department. So I guess my question to you is just, what is the response to the no voter here? Why these should be added back? Kind of what value do these positions bring to the community? Why should this be a part of the budget, despite the result last year?
So what happened was, I mean, it was all out there, but again, like you said, who pays attention? Who's reading anything? So I don't think people really, and again, I agree with you, that Shannon, that there are people that are like, oh, you said you were gonna do something and you didn't do it. I've been through that. I watched it. They cried every time that they somehow found some money from tax abatement fund or something else, so they didn't have to make the cuts that they basically said that they were going to, knowing full well that that wasn't gonna be the case this particular year. When the second override failed, we were gonna make those cuts. So I don't think people really thought it was gonna happen when we ended up reducing the community service unit, and we got, two of the SROs had to be transferred to the patrol division. And so between teachers coming to council meetings asking for them to be restored to just everybody, and of course the whole Halloween thing. Oh my God, the Halloween party's been canceled. They did that because they're trying to get back at us. The Halloween party was not canceled because we didn't have the funding. The Halloween party was canceled because over 3,000 people show up for that at the station. We had the volunteers because the officers would still volunteer. I had the money in the community policing fund to be able to pay for the candy and the apples and the bouncy houses and all that. The problem is that the whole thing is planned out and managed by 4 community service officers that were now cut to 2 at a time when all of a sudden we just went through an historic redistricting in our schools. So I've got 2 people doing the job of 4, and the schools are all different, and kids are getting on wrong buses and the whole 9 yards. They did not have the bandwidth to put this together. So for anybody that says that we didn't have the money, you're wrong. We had the money. We just didn't have the bandwidth to be able to do it. But the things that got cut were the 2 school resource officers. The comfort dogs are no longer available at the schools as often. They still go with the officers in the cars, and if something really came up, they can go. All the internship programs with Dean College, Tri-County High School, the car seat installation program was drastically reduced. Our annual summer leadership camp down in Meadowlark, gone. Can't do it. The annual Halloween party, the Faith to Blue program, the liaison program, the senior center, the weekly food deliveries to the food pantry that our CSOs would make was reduced. Not all these were canceled, not all these were eliminated, but they were drastically reduced. Coffee with a Cop, health fairs, job fairs, underage alcohol enforcement, touch truck events, rad kid classes, and the speed enforcement trailer deployment. We got 4 speed enforcement trailers. I got 2 people. They can't just be moving them around at the schools and everything else. So these are all the things that were reduced. People were upset about them. They wanted to see more. Our biggest thing is traffic. That's what we have. We don't have omnipresence. We try to put the officers out when we can. The speed enforcement trailers help out as well. But that's pretty much the reasons that we're asking for it back. And again, our children are precious to us all. And it's not that we're not going to respond to the schools if something happens, but I would rather have officers dedicated, to the schools. Principals had their cell phone numbers so that they could call them whenever they needed them, day or night. And now there's only 2 doing the work of 4.
Makes sense.
Can you talk about the value of the mental health counselors?
The mental health clinicians? Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate. I mean, I get phone calls all the time as to how do you have 3 mental health clinicians because we only have 1 or 2 and we could use 5. Mental health went through the roof after COVID. Anybody with an anxiety-related issue, Anybody that, I mean, what happened is everybody was sequestered, didn't have that human-to-human contact and all that, and our mental health calls basically went through the roof. Jamie came up, it was his idea. I don't think there's any other Norfolk County community that when they had an option to use ARPA money and put in for a grant, they mostly all did infrastructure. Jamie did infrastructure and a novel idea of let's do a 3-year pilot program for 3 clinicians. And so it was like $900-something thousand that we received. The grant ran from, I can't remember when it started, but I know it ends on December 31st of '26. They're basically seeing over 800 people a year. And we had Cali early, back in 2018. I think we were the first Norfolk County community to have a co-response clinician, and we were one of only, I think, 7 or 8 in the state at the time that did it. And she proved her worth and everything else, and it just made sense that, hey, we'd like to have a more robust program, have people that are on for more hours of the day, including the weekends. She couldn't be there all the time. She could only work 40 hours a week. And there was a lot of follow-up activity that she would have to do versus we'd like to have them there to triage events with the officers once, on scene when they happen. They're, like I said, by far, without a doubt, the single best resource or change in the way that we do business in law enforcement in the 30 years that I've been on the job.
I saw in your discussion, the idea that you did not have to arrest a person, I don't know how many arrests, and ED diversions. Have you ever tried to approach, another idea, the Blue Cross Foundation about this program? Because you do have some data in there about keeping people out of the emergency room.
No, we haven't. I mean, I know that there's state-related, the Massachusetts Chiefs of Police Association are absolutely devastated that the governor for the 2nd year in a row, because she did the same thing last year. She took the budget from, it was over 24 million and advocated for 4 million, and then they settled on 19. Now it's 19 this year, and they basically want to cut it to 4 million again. I don't know where they'll go, but, they've collected a lot of data throughout, like we give them our data, all the other towns and cities that have co-response give them theirs. It really would have to come from something.
So that data is something that you have to file with the state, or is that just your own data?
It's our own data, but we do end up sharing it with the Mass Chiefs of Police.
Okay, so you do, what I'm saying, you do have data that you can document the input, the efficacy of the program. Maybe something I can, okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was, you ought to take your little, I'll call it a rant, for lack of a better term, a little while ago. Clip it out and plaster everywhere.
We'll ask Connor Crossman to do that. That was a...
Mr. Chairman, I've been doing this now for how long?
30 years last week.
Basically explaining where we've been and what we've been dealing with, and just, like I said, I mean, you're not going to find a more lean government, municipal government serving a community the size of ours than what we have here. And the fact that we're still able to do a really good job is amazing.
I know he
Really?
agrees with you.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Thanks, CJ.
Thank you very much.
Now Chief Allen gets to follow that act.
Okay, I'm trying.
Well, you know the drill.
I know the drill. Good evening, Chuck Allen, Fire Chief. I'm joined by Deputy Chief of Operations Jim Klitsch, Deputy Chief of Administration Darby Barbier. What we have before you is a level service budget, so this doesn't add any personnel. It keeps us right where we are from the previous years.
Do you want to I'm not sure where we're headed here. Questions? Why don't we start right with questions? Anybody? I mean, I have a question. Is the third ambulance in this budget, and for how much, how many
So
hours?
it's still in part-time, which is just about 40 hours a week. I should premise that by saying that that is in service when we have, well, the way we staff that is we have an EMS captain that is an administrative position that works during the day, 40 hours. We have to pull that person away from their regular duties and put them on the ambulance when a third ambulance call comes in and they're available. So what we do is we upstaff, we use the daily shift staffing, and then we use that person. So it's not completely ideal, but that's what we plan on doing going forward. In an ideal situation, we would have, our full staff would have 4 more firefighter paramedics, and that would get us to a minimum of 13 people a shift. That would allow us to staff that third ambulance all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But this just keeps us doing what we're doing now, which is still doing it part-time.
Has Laurie come up with she's the captain. Has she come up with a dollar amount that it generated in some measurable?
It's almost impossible to say what each individual ambulance generates. I will say that our ambulance revenue year over year goes up. So right now, this time last year, we're up about 191,000 from where we were the previous year. Our ambulance revenue has increased about 56% over the last 6 years. So last year, our receipts that we took in, including CPE, was about 2.7 million. That'll probably be close to 2.9, maybe 3 next year is what we're predicting it to be.
Are we losing money by not having, sorry, are we losing money by when other towns get to make the call
Yes.
to us? How
Yes.
much are we losing?
That all depends on the call too, so you really don't know what, there's a set rate for ambulance billing, but that changes by if it's a Medicare patient, or if it's a full insurance payment, or if it's somebody that pays out of pocket. I can't tell you exactly what that ambulance call would lose, but if we lose 300 or 400 ambulance calls, that could be $300,000 or $400,000. It could be more than that. It depends on what that call actually is. From the time this meeting started until now, we had 2 mutual aid ambulances come in and do 2 calls. They both transported to the hospital. So that is a loss of revenue.
And would bringing those, you said you needed 4 people?
So I
get it
should
to
back up so
full-time?
you understand how a shift is staffed. So we staff a shift with, our maximum staffing is 14 firefighters per shift. That gives us enough room to be able to account for vacations and sick calls and holiday and things like that. Our minimum is traditionally 11. We'll bring that up to 12 to, certain hours. So when we're at 14, we have that ambulance in service because we have enough people to do it. But we can't do it on a regular basis because there's always somebody out. We have 3 people on an injury right now. So the shift has a maximum and a minimum. And that's how basically every fire department runs, their shift to be able to account for the people. So when we're at 13, we have enough people to staff the ambulance. So there are times it's available at night, there's times it's available for 24 hours, there's times it's not staffed at all, depending on what we have and who's in. It's very sporadic. For us to get more stable, we need to have another 4 people to get the shifts to 15, so we have enough room to be able to have, people off and accommodate contractual obligations in order to get the shifts more reliably staffed to 13. If we're staffed to 13, it would be in service all the time. It's not just the ambulance either, it's the ladder truck too. So we cross-staff the apparatus, and that, anytime that A1 is out of service or at the hospital, there's no ladder truck staffed for the town at all. So that's,
And so if you had those 4, you would be bringing in more money
we would.
for additional calls?
We would.
And we would not be losing the money on the mutual aid calls?
Yeah, again, I can't tell you how much it exactly would be. That would take us probably a few years of generation to figure out exactly what would be coming in, but yeah.
But we wouldn't need, theoretically, we wouldn't need as many mutual aid calls if we had
Correct.
a full-time.
Yes.
So this is so bringing in these people, 4 extra people, is a money-generating
Eventually it would be.
prospect.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to that question, that's the reason why I was raising my hand. We talked about local receipts earlier. I'm just holding up Kerry's sheet, I know nobody can see it. But on here, you'll have fees ambulance, right? This is one where you look at, in FY '26, we estimated we'd be at about 2.5 million, right? A couple things to note. One, right now, we're right on target to meet that projection. We do anticipate, as we've been doing every year, the council will revise the ambulance rates in our bylaw. We've been doing a check to make sure that our rates, our ALS and BLS rates are at the middle of the pack. So our consultant with the EMS staff, Billy and the rest of the team, they kind of go out and do all the comparables. They work with them and make sure that the rates, sometimes the rates go up a little bit higher than normal. Sometimes they've gone up just $1 or some cents over the last 5 or 6 years. But we try to maintain those rates to make sure the revenue is coming in to pay for the fire department. The one thing I wanted to note is his budget, what's the total? Is it like around 8 million or something?
That's 8.4, yeah.
8.4. So even if you're right, you are correct. We would, if we had more staff, we would bring in more revenue. The only thing I would note is right now we're paying for about, and this is pretty high, we're paying for about 1/3 of the entire fire department's cost via the rates. So if you use that assumption and you invest in another shift of firefighters, 2/3 of that cost is then put onto the tax levy. So it's not, just because it's a revenue generator, which it is, doesn't mean you're going to bring in the money that's going to actually pay for that entire service. So you're still actually increasing the deficit on that budget by 2/3 in terms of if you added those the three paramedics, 2/3 of that would have to come out of the tax levy, which obviously we already know the trouble with that. So it's not just an easy thing to do. And to Chief Allen's point, it doesn't matriculate like in day one, right? So we would estimate probably a full year of almost the full cost of those 4 people, and then realize, towards the end of that fiscal year, maybe half a year, and then go into the next fiscal year, we would assume, a higher rate of reimbursement. Thank you.
That's a great point. Great point. So have you ever been fully staffed, this historical data situation that I'm always looking for?
We're fully staffed now.
Okay. Have you ever had these additional 4?
We've made strides over, what's that?
Have you ever had these additional 4? So how does
No,
the
we've
fully
never been to 15,
staffed
no.
mean?
We've never been to 15.
Okay, so you're fully staffed, but you could add 4 more. To me, that means you're not fully staffed.
That, the ideal staff for us to be able to handle the volume that we have is another 4 firefighters.
Got it.
Yes.
So that would be just like I asked the police chief, if I asked you to put together a real budget
Yes,
that has all the things that you actually need,
yes,
you could do that.
yes.
And it would include
4 firefighters.
4 firefighters and a fire truck.
Yeah, well, luckily, we're good on the fire truck right now, but yes. yeah.
Right, okay, thanks.
So basically, we're fully staffed to run the 2 ambulances 24/7. This would get us to 3 ambulances 24/7.
Right, so the ideal budget, not a magical budget, but an ideal budget
Correct,
would
yes.
have that.
Just a quick question, to move your items from capital to operating, what else comes out of capital for you besides the staffing that is an annual?
We buy gear every year.
Yeah.
That's a definite.
That'd be the one.
That'd be the one.
Recurring.
Yeah.
That would be a
And
guarantee every year.
And how much? Estimate?
100,000, maybe a little
A
more.
little over 1,000, 100,000. It's about
$100,000.
$8,000 per firefighter for the gear, and it just goes up.
And that's
Continually.
the only thing for reoccurring that comes out of the
And
capital?
we
fund?
run our vehicles into the ground, so, I
Right.
mean, we don't have a predictable, we have to replace a car or a truck every year. When we ask for those things, we did ask for a pickup truck this year.
Yeah.
We do need it. The pickup truck that we have was an old DPW truck, so we tend to run things until the end of their life cycle, so.
They don't even give you a new one.
Well, we've had some new stuff here, so.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Jamie, I may not necessarily agree with the last statement, and I'll talk to you. I may have a different opinion on that. Sure. On the ambulance, who does your billing?
Comstar.
Comstock?
Yeah.
What do they charge for a rate?
2.9, I think right now,
Okay,
2.9%.
could you hire a biller?
We did that years ago,
And-
and we had one in-house years ago. That I think it was more economical to go with the,
Outside.
to go with an outside company. They really, they really try and get every dollar out of what's actually billable. I think we've been very successful with that, so.
And you got a battalion, talk about the EMS division, like
Yeah,
you got
so-
the staff that oversee it.
So what we do, we have an EMS division in the department. So we have a battalion chief in charge of EMS, and then that captain that's in charge of other portions of the EMS. Some of their job functions, and there's many, is QA, QI. So when you bill an ambulance call, bill for an ambulance service, a lot of that is based on basically what has been recorded by that paramedic in the ambulance. So we go back and make sure, as those calls come in real time, to make sure everything is billed properly and nobody missed anything. That attributes to a dollar amount, and we've been very successful over the years to be able to make sure we maximize our billing rate. So for us to go in-house, I don't think you'd probably see, for us to hire an internal billing person, I don't think you'd probably see an increase at all, but we're already pretty efficient as it is, really.
And what's the percentage of bad debt within that contract? Do you know?
What we bill versus what we get?
Well, you got a couple of things here. You made reference that we have a fee screen that we bill out at.
Yeah. So I don't know the percentage, but I will tell you this, this is actually what led to the entire department reform 7 years ago, was we were collecting at a very low number, roughly 80%, 82% if my memory serves me correctly. And when we revised the entire department and we did the civil service exit, we got rid of stipends in the department, we got rid of one of the captain's positions, the union gave those things up, and we renegotiated an entire new work chart in the department. That's where we came up with the EMS division with Billy and Laurie, and they're actually charged with making sure that we get all those numbers. I feel confident, I don't know the exact number, you guys could look it up, but I think we're well over collection of 90% now, if not far in the high 90s, because we actually have staff that are doing that quality control and making sure we're getting the money back that we are. But as you know, some of it is just the same thing as like paying property taxes. You're never gonna hit 100% because there's always gonna be, it's like unemployment, you're always gonna have 2, 3, 4% in the system. So there's a max at some point where you can go. But I think we've always been very high. I don't know, I thought you were gonna jump in, you're writing down.
I'm writing down
To
that
get
I
the
will
number.
get that for you.
But the collection rate is increased about 10 to 15% since we got those, since we did that divisional reform 6 years ago.
Okay, so again, the idea that we have a fee screen that we bill out at.
Yep.
Do we have contracts with insurance companies, or do they pay the fee screen?
We don't have contracts with insurance companies.
Okay, so if we bill out $2,000, the insurance company pays $2,000.
Right,
They
but
don't
that-
take a contractual,
Correct.
okay? Medicare is different, I know. You have to,
Yes.
Medicare is what it is, and same thing with Medicaid. But so what you say, what we're saying right now, if I have a $2,000 run, and the unfortunate patient has to be a commercial payer, we're billing $2,000 to the insurance company, and we expect a $2,000.
Yes. Medicare is a little different too, though, because we can go back and get, it's called certified public expenditure. That's another thing that we do between our administrative assistant and our EMS battalion chief, Blanchard. They go through and they spend a significant amount of time looking for that. Basically, what we do is you're allowed to go back and recoup some of your loss in Medicare reimbursement. So every year it's very different from year to year.
Yeah.
This year was about 108,000. Other years it's been about 225,000. But we've been successful, and not a lot of communities go after that money. It's a lot of work, but we do it, and we've been successful in recouping it.
So you file like a cost report with Medicare?
Basically, it's something like that.
Okay. So, why do we put, as we look at that fee screen, why do we say we're gonna be in the middle?
Oh, in terms of the rates?
Yeah.
I think that's been our objective. When we started this, 2017, 18, Chuck, I think with Tommy, you guys, right? I'm just thinking back, we were way low. We were far low.
Yeah.
So we aimed at the middle because, it's an expensive run, right? And so at the end of the day, we've just made an unwritten policy decision to some degree to say, within the region, we're not gonna be the most expensive or the poorest or the least. We're gonna try to aim at that middle level. And truth be told, we probably tick a little bit up higher than that, given the fact of the revenue issues that we've had that folks have been talking about. You know, we probably round up, if you will. But, you know, also there's a sensitivity in the community, right? When you're talking about a $2,700 run, you know, you don't want to make it so that people don't call the ambulance and they don't get the service they need and stuff like that. So it's a, you know, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, and I think we can all be open to the judgment on whether the decision to be in the middle and kind of rounding up is the right move. But, you know, also acknowledge the town councilors have to vote on that bylaw twice. It's a fee increase. You know, it's just one of those issues that you look at, and you know, we'll be taking that up, by the way, as part of the budget process this year in May and June. So the council will be voting on that in a couple months.
It's a small increase, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't even looked at the numbers yet. Oh, Chuck hasn't, okay. I'm sure it's in my inbox, I'm sure it's in my inbox. Wait till May.
Thank you.
It was easy compared to the police chief.
I know.
Yeah.
No, not,
That's because
No, it'll still be easy, it'll still be easy.
you pick us up on our lawn when we have heart attacks.
Right. Mark Minichelli, 31 Longfellow Drive. So I know it's Finance Committee, and I understand all of the questions around the third ambulance were financial, but could you speak to the safety and response time implications of having a full-time fully staffed third ambulance?
As our call volume increases year over year, we're less available. So we do need to make that investment sooner rather than later to make sure that we have enough staff to be able to meet the volume that we have and the volume that's coming tomorrow. Our call response times, they've ticked down a little bit. We're not terrible, but it does. If you don't have an ambulance available, you don't have any staff available to the calls, there is going to be an increase in response time. So.
And I would also note, the chief has put in the budget a history of call volume, and I think both the police and fire, you know, you see record-breaking calls every year. I think those in healthcare know. You know, so it just keeps going up. So when you look at that response time and you have less service to get there, but you have a higher call rate, you know, that time is going to be of a concern.
So I think it was in our budget narrative, our
Yes.
concurrent calls are record high, 3,700 calls occurred when there's another call going on. So that trend is just going to continue.
Yeah, with those mutual aid ambulances, obviously they're coming from a further distance too. So you got to account for that. It's going to take a little bit longer for that ambulance to get to the scene in Franklin.
Call Medway for me, please.
So I mean, Jamie's analogy about we can't plow the roads 10% less or 20% less, right? Because there's safety implications. But here we're exploring reducing the staffing on a third ambulance.
Sorry, we're not
Reducing?
reducing, we're just not increasing.
No, we're not increasing.
So it's not running at full.
It's not running at full
capacity,
staff.
but we're not.
It really should run at full
There's
staff.
no proposal to change that, right?
There's a lot of things that we have to, that as a community we have to look at too. It's not just the ambulance, it's also the staff in the ladder truck. If you look at things that are going on the state level right now, there's a bill out there to make buildings single stairwell. If that goes through in the state, you'll see some of these apartment buildings will be by right be able to only have one stairwell for an exit. A community like us where we have, that's to save money for make more affordable housing, I guess, is the premise behind it. That makes the community more dangerous. So for a community like us, we have multi-story buildings, we need to have a properly staffed ladder truck. When A1, our ambulance out of headquarters, is not in the station, there's no one there to take that ladder truck. If there's a fire in one of those buildings, there's no way to get people out, certainly if there's only one stairwell. So we need to prepare for those things as we go forward as a community and make the investments as we go. So.
Just from education, when you have mutual aid, you know, do we have to reimburse the other town?
No, so they collect the revenue as part of our agreement with all the surrounding
on
communities,
that.
so they collect the revenue from the call.
Okay, what about on just pure fire?
There's no cost
Okay,
between
this
either
is just
community,
help
we just
me
provide
help
the
you.
service, yeah.
So just a comment. I think, Chief, this is one of the most actual level service budgets we've seen. I think we've heard that said a lot, but this is same, so I appreciate that. I would just like to point out, again, for those that do watch, thank you for your civic engagement, but you'll see here that the amount went up 7.8%. It's not to say good or bad, it's just it's not 2.5%, which is our revenue growth. So there's a disconnect. It doesn't work.
Just got to make a little tweak to that comment. Our revenue growth is not 2.5%.
Sorry, it's slightly less, it's 2.5.
No, it's
on one
more.
base.
No, it's more. And I just want to clarify this, right?
On the 100K,
Because
it's
this is
2.5.
actually,
Right?
on levy.
100 million.
On levy. This is actually a clarification, I'm glad you asked it. And this is actually the right budget to ask it. Local receipts is at 5%.
Okay.
So when you look at the number, the revenue growth is actually, this is a misconception, I think, in the community, because urban myths are out there, and people hear things, and then they make up their own stories, they make up their own narratives, they put it on Facebook, they talk to their friends, and mistruths just become fact, right? And I'm not complaining, that's not directed at you, Ryan, or anybody in the FinCom, but we hear about revenue growth at 2.5%, that's totally legit on the tax levy. When you add in the local receipts factor, and it's important for them because their revenue is going up at a higher rate than 2.5. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And I know, and another confusing thing that people have articulated, I have never said, and again, just to clarify, this isn't on you, Ryan, but people say I've always said I want to keep budgets at 2.5. I've never said that. What I've said is COLA equity is what's important for personnel management costs, because personnel is by far the biggest cost driver to the town across the board. What is it, like 80-something% is like personnel costs, and then when you look at healthcare that goes according to them, that's also large there. So in this case, because they bring in ambulance receipts, that number is going to be obviously a little higher. I appreciate the opportunity just to tweak.
It's a very good, I mean, I just did the math, it's a very good, it was easy to say and incorrect, so it's a good mathematical, factual correction. The point still stands, has nothing to do with fire at all, like their receipts might help to justify theirs, but it just goes to show a level service budget going up just from salaries is almost 8%. Our budget went up 4.8%. There's still a
little gap there.
Large divide there, and it's not to say you could have done anything about that. I think we've talked to most of the departments, it's contracted services and salaries and things like that.
Exactly,
You really can't
exactly what it
change, but the income growth at 4.8% doesn't meet the 7.8%.
As our department ages, people, as they've been in the system longer, they'll have more vacation
point.
time. They'll have more, they may get more education. They may go to, those are
Thanks, Steve.
long-standing obligations that the department has. So that will catch up to itself, and that is reflected in this budget this year. So.
If I may, definition reference from my multiple years reporting, and by clarification, Steve Sherlock, 13 Magnolia Drive, Community Information Director on the volunteer basis for Franklin Matters, Franklin Public Radio. Level service is a terminology that actually equates to what they've done, because that is the service being provided. There is another term called level funded, in which case then the 7 million would have been 7 million for 2-3 years in a row. So terminology is important, level service versus level funded, because that had come up earlier in these discussions, specifically on the school side, but certainly on the town side. So I just want to make that clarification. Thank you.
And I guess to clarify my comment and response, this was true level service. I think we saw a number of budgets that claimed to be level service, but did have a number of moving of things around within. We got rid of 3 people here, we added 3 people who do totally different jobs over here, and it was called level service, but it's not the same net service. It's slightly different service. So I think it was meant more, I'm not saying that it was incorrect or anything, I think it was just meant more, we're not overall increasing or decreasing our staffing, we're trying to keep this as flat as we can headcount wise, but we may be changing up the mix of those headcounts. This budget is not that, it is very definitionally correct.
And speaking of the headcount, we were cut 2 positions last year. When they brought those back, They only brought them back for half a year. We're responsible for them for the entire year going forward, so that is reflected in this budget also. There is a cost to that, that was not reflected in last year's budget, so.
Anybody else? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Was this an audition or something? Everyone that comes through gets a clap.
You're doing a good job.
You'll get one too, Tom.
Jamie.
They should be going,
Hey, Jamie,
Oh, Gus is back.
regional dispatch, we did not talk about. It's just been pointed out.
Sure. Yeah, I think animal control and regional dispatch, maybe the island of misfit toys, but let me just pull out real quick. So regional dispatch, oh, go ahead, Steve. Yeah. Well, I'm looking up the,
To that end, I've already gotten queries from the public, because there are other people out there, not necessarily visible, but via cable, Comcast and Verizon, which we cannot determine the numbers of viewers on, but clearly people are hitting us. You skipped Tri-County and Norfolk Aggie with no explanation as to why they were skipped last night. People are curious. Thank you.
Well, that's absolutely true.
it is.
And it's kind of,
We'll just go through they're four quick budgets. If there's questions, Jen was on the school committee at Tri-County, or she still is, so she'd be more than happy to speak to it, I'm sure.
You're getting a great tip.
Right? No, regional dispatch quickly. I will say this number in the final budget that's in here will go up. The MEC Board of Directors just finalized the budget last week, so it'll go up probably about $75,000. So does anybody have any questions on regional dispatch or what it is?
is the effect
It's
of...
account 225, it's Department 225.
It's after the fire budget.
I would claim for Zoomland, could you explain it? But I'll take the explanation too, because I don't know.
Sure.
George, just while you're talking about it, will the SEMREC thing...
I can speak to it quick. It's in the narrative.
Okay.
Sure.
There's lots of people who didn't read it, that's all.
So the Regional Dispatch Center, the chief spoke to it really quickly. In 2019, I think the project started in 2009. Just for the record, Chief Lynch, Chief Allen, and I all inherited this. In 2019, the Regional Dispatch Center opened. It's in Norfolk. It's on the second floor of the police station, and it's a regional dispatch center for 6 communities. Us, Rentham, Norfolk, Plainville, Mendon, and Millville. We actually regionalized Mendon and Millville, if you're asking why them. They were their own regional dispatch center, and they were going to go bankrupt. Two very, very small towns who should have never regionalized to begin with. But during the pandemic, they hit some hard times, and we accepted them in, and basically you have an economies of scale dispatch center. Instead of 6 individual centers, you got one state-of-the-art facility over there. We've been working for a few years, and I think there's going to be some movement come this summer on laying the groundwork where we're actually going to regionalize with the MEC, Metacomet Emergency Communication Center, it's the acronym, the MEC, with the SEMREC facility, which is the Foxborough Dispatch Center. As both the chiefs have spoken to intermittently through the years, I mean, obviously with the World Cup coming as well, with Gillette Stadium, the public safety ecosystem around Foxborough and throughout this entire region is just growing. That actually is really good for our communities because you're the epicenter of one of the most safest areas you're going to be in because of Homeland Security presence and the state police. There's a level 1 trauma center over there. There's a whole variety of resources. So we think it makes sense, and we're working with that board. And probably I would say by the end of the decade, there needs to be a fit out on the SEMREC facility in Foxborough to grow. But I think by the time you get to the end of the decade, you're going to be looking at a center that's probably going to be 10 to 15 communities. That will be the largest regional dispatch center in all of New England. By contrast, the state of California has 5 dispatch centers. The state of Massachusetts has what, 280? I mean, something like that. Like every city or town has their own dispatch center. So it's one of those economies of scale plus the state-of-the-art facility There's a state 911 division. On all of your cell phone bills, you pay a surcharge into the 911 fund, and a lot of that money comes back into capital that goes into these facilities for the software and all that sort of stuff. So I will say, cheap plug, dispatchers are hard to find these days. And the pay is not great. The stress and what comes with it is extraordinary. We've had many life-saving calls on our system. It's a very high-pressure environment. My dad was actually a dispatcher for 38 years at the state police. I do think that trying to regionalize is also a goal of trying to build a career so that we can actually give people a career ladder, because a lot of people now become a dispatcher for a few years, and then they go out and they go to the academy, they join police or fire, and then you kind of lose that institutional capacity, and that's been a big problem at the dispatch center, both of them. And it's been hard for both centers to maintain a full staffing level. And so by kind of joining the facilities, you can kind of create, hopefully, a system where people can be incentivized to stay there for a longer period of time. So that's another one thing that nobody knows I do. In my free time and on weekends, I chair the regional dispatch board. The town managers of all those communities make up the board, same thing with SEMREC. And we're actually going to be trying to ink a deal in a few months to have one macro executive director to kind of lay the groundwork toward a larger regionalization effort. And what the hope is like you saw in the past over here, you can look back and expended 2024, the MEC was only $958,000. Well, we were getting a grant from the state that was paying our bill like 25%, 50%. There was like a phase-in, phase-out kind of scheme. And so now we're paying the full freight. And that what we hope is if we merge again, we can be eligible for those grants to try to pay that. And we think that, and this could be a really big deal in the larger macro strategy, is that if our bill is 1.5 million in 2 years, and the state's going to pick up half that bill or a quarter of that bill, that's some serious money that can provide some structural relief for several years in our budget. So that's my 5-minute version.
Jamie, was that a net savings when we did all that consolidation?
It's
I remember the police chief was saying that he had to bring some people back.
Yeah.
So was it a net savings?
It was a net savings for a period of time, and in all defense of the folks that led to this, in 2019, they worked for 10 years on this, and then, we opened in May of 2019. I became town manager 2 weeks that week. If Jeff's listening, he led it all the way, and that's when TJ got hired. Not shortly long after that, or no, you were in 17. You were a little earlier when I was assistant town manager here. But the net savings was there. It was for several years where you offset your costs. So for several years we offset the costs. The grant merging with Mendon and Millville was really where we saw the biggest part of the savings for several years. Nobody anticipated the pandemic in 2020, which kind of disrupted everything. But I would say the biggest value is that you had a modernized facility and you had modernized equipment. If you go to the SEMREC facility now, you feel like you're walking into the Millennium Falcon. I mean, it's a spaceship in there. They've got dashboards and they have, all sorts of GPS locations for people. I mean, you're carrying your cell phones around with you now. This helps EMS be able to track you down and do better public safety services. So when you look at the real value, it's not really about some panacea of money that you're going to save. It's really about the quality of the service, quality of the location, and really the technology.
Tri-County and Aggie? Or whichever one you have on. Yeah.
Animal control quickly is going to be pretty flat. We did have a complaint down at the facility that resulted in the state coming in and doing some inspections. So we're going to have to invest a little bit of capital money in there over the next year or two. But we're in a regional agreement with the town of Bellingham. And so they're facing more budget struggles than we are. So, we've communicated with the state. We are doing some improvements down there in the facility right now. It's nothing super alarming. Some of the stuff was pretty low key. But at some point, with a new town manager in Bellingham, we're going to look to revise the whole agreement. We want to try to bring in other communities to try to bring down economies of scale. But, they don't have an assistant town manager over there either, and so there's only so much bandwidth and there's only so much money. So I was hoping that we would have a revised agreement and a revised system for this June, but based on things, I think that's going to probably get kicked out another year. And Tracy Taddeo, most people may know in town for the townies, is our animal control officer, and she's unbelievable at what she does. So it's pretty straight up.
Tri-county?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a formula. It's just we get the assessment, and it is what it is. I think our student enrollment's maxed up 180, so I think it's pretty close to maxed out, right?
Yeah, I think your estimate's a little low.
Yeah, well, it's delayed a year, I think,
I haven't
too.
received.
The debt.
Oh, the debt, yeah.
The debt.
Yeah.
So the debt for the new building is on this year?
Correct.
So yeah, so.
But we still haven't received the assessment, so I
Right.
can't make any change.
But,
Stand.
Just saying.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, I still haven't received it.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
I
yeah, it
think-
is a little late, but that being said, we're in a regional agreement. It is what it is. Our students go there, we pay the bill. They don't go there, we pay less money. It's usually pretty average, but I think with the new school being opening next year, 27, if you build it, they will come. There's a max capacity of 1,000 students, but my guess is at some point there'll be another waiting list, because when you build a state-of-the-art facility that's as amazing as the school is going to be, you're going to probably have a more competitive demand for the school. But again, the debt exclusion, we raised the tax and then the tax sunsets. That was a voter-approved initiative. 81%, 82%, I think, voted in favor of it. It was overwhelming, so it's on the control sheet at the top. Doesn't affect the budget in 390 right here. That's up in the debt exclusion section.
And Norfolk Aggie is,
Tom, has a question.
huh? Oh, I'm sorry.
The comment Bill, that they will come. Are we concerned that we will lose students out of the high school that will go there?
I don't think so. I don't think it'll be a large delta. Maybe Jen can.
Yeah, no, the numbers stay about the same.
Yeah.
So the assessment is based on the enrollment from the previous year.
Yeah.
And so I think coming in, it's a little bit higher this year, but the numbers stay. So we have a charter with all the towns that are part of Tri-County, and the charter dictates the number of students and how those seats are allocated by town. And then additionally, there's a $1,000 student max that's not increasing. So there's no capacity increase with the new building. So you won't see much of a change.
Yeah, it's no more than like 5 or 10 students per year, up or down.
Duplicate services, I don't know if it's technically services, but are there duplicate courses between the high school and the Tri-County?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
So it's a public school, so they follow the same state requirements that Franklin High School follows as far as core instructional classes. So as far as duplicates, they replicate, so it's the same core competency classes. And then instead of elective credits, they do vocational. So that's the other side of it.
So does the high school have a shop and Tri-County has a shop? Does the
No.
high
I don't
school
think we
have
do.
High school doesn't have any vocational programming. Some high schools do, ours, Franklin does not. Yeah.
When we were in school, Tom, they did, but they don't do,
Elective
when we were in
classes.
school, they did that, but we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
We also had silversmithing when George and I were in school.
It might be making a comeback, but I'm not sure.
And the only thing left is Aggie, like $16,000 or something?
80.
If I remember.
80.
It's,
Wow.
the
Okay,
enrollment has been
Gone up.
increasing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still, that assessment comes in a little, it waits for October when Jesse numbers are out.
Yeah.
It has been increasing, the enrollment and the cost.
So how much, okay, so if I look at the calculation of how the state looks at preparation of the school budget, they have this worksheet that looks at the number of students and it stratifies it by grade and so on and so forth, does these multiplications, add on for certain things, comes up to a number, all right? And there's that worksheet that we saw at that Desi presented, is that worksheet, was that just for Franklin, or was that for the 3 schools?
That was just for Franklin, I think.
Okay. When they do the revenue
You
calculation,
pay us. You get the money for student allocation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that number does include student allocation. It's where the students live. So when the state does their.
I see.
You know what I'm saying?
so, no, let me finish.
Okay, great.
Okay. Now, on the other side of the equation, the state does this calculation of what the town can afford based upon the property valuation and, you know, the wealth of the town.
Yep, income. Yep.
Okay? And then they come up with a calculation for how much the state's gonna kick in to meet the 82% rule. All right? That number technically is $14 million. But we have a windfall. We have that whole harmless provision that gets us up to the 30 million. Okay? So on that side of the equation, I'm gonna call it the revenue side. That revenue side, does that include the funding for these schools also? So I'm required to put out
Well, so-
90, I'm required, I had a calculation here.
I don't believe, so what you, just conflating a couple things. To Jen's point, it starts with the location of the child and then where it goes. However, on our Chapter 70 sheet, this Tri-County and Nagy assessment is different.
It is.
Than what you're referencing in terms of Chapter 78.
Right.
Which, Tom, the net is 30 million, right? But the number's actually higher, I believe, it's not up on the screen, because of the state assessments. But if you look at the state assessments on the control sheet, that's not where Tri-County and the Aggie are.
So again, on that.
I'm just gonna put it on the screen so he can see it.
Look at, do you have
Bless
it?
you.
Do you have page 17 on this, that Desi,
I don't know about that, but what you're talking about right here is the state revenue.
School aid.
now, I'm looking at what the town's obligation, required obligation is to education,
Yep.
okay? Which there were 3 components that I saw in that presentation.
Yeah.
One was the, again, the aggregate income times a factor.
Yep.
Okay? The other one was the assessed base
Yep.
of our property times a factor.
The aggregate wealth model.
Aggregate wealth model, that's what you wanted to call it. It's the, so that comes up to a number. And then the state does a test, all right? I love state formulas. So the state now does a test, all right? And it says that our foundation budget for the schools is 68 million.
Franklin Public Schools only.
Only.
That's it.
That's it.
Not
So
including
calculation-
Tri-County, the charter school, or the Norfolk Aggie. That number is just simply for Franklin Public Schools.
That's just for Franklin?
Correct.
Okay.
Franklin Public Schools, not just Franklin, but Franklin Public Schools.
Yeah, understood.
But the money you get is based on
All
the
right.
students.
Now, is that same formula,
That's all right.
is that same formula
No,
for Tri-County and A?
no, there's a 1958, 1978, whenever Tri-County became a school, well, I just thought maybe, whenever it became a school, so at one point, what? 76?
Yeah, 75,
76?
76, yeah.
So at one point, when all the vocational schools in Massachusetts were almost built at the same time.
Free.
Free.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing these massive building projects with Keefe Tech and Whittier Tech up on the North Shore at the 300, 400, 500 million, because they're all now phasing out at about the same time. So that regional agreement among the communities in the Tri-County district, and I think it's almost the same formula in every vocational school, I believe, or it's pretty similar. That regional agreement determines the shared funding among that school district. So basically what happens is it's a per pupil cost, obviously. In the aggregate of however they calculate the vocational school cost, the regional agreement between the 12 towns that are in our District 13 or whatever it is, that there's a formula in that that breaks up the revenue and why you pay the per pupil. So if it's 180 students, whatever the per pupil cost is, there's the number right here.
What I'm trying to get is that per pupil cost.
Do you know what that is?
All right.
I don't know what it is at Tri-County.
Is there a different methodology to
Yes.
say that
Yes.
Yes.
for the school, the baseline
Yes.
funding for the school should be $20 million?
Yeah,
I'm just
so-
using it as a number.
So I think what happens is the funding for the students, regardless of where they go, and for our Chapter 70, is done the same. And then the assessment, so all that money comes to Franklin, then we issue an assessment for Tri-County that Franklin pays. So they're not paying all of that out of, some of it is offset by Chapter 70.
Okay, so where's that revenue for the town, that money in our revenue side of the budget? I don't see it.
Chapter 70.
That's
It's
what I was
chapter-
getting back to this.
Yeah, it's Chapter 70.
I
The
was
way they
getting back to this
calculate
because I
it,
can tie this into this.
yep, the way they
So it
calculate
in
it
this
is,
number.
it's embedded in that number.
Okay. All right, because if I go to this worksheet here, it says 85 million, I think that's, I may be wrong, 30 million, the $30 million aid, okay, I see the 30 million coming in. And that's, that is also for the Tri-County and
And,
for.
correct, because we don't get direct money from Department of Ed.
So it's somewhere. it's in
It goes to the towns, and then we assess the towns for that money.
And we
But
get
how
a
do you
bill.
come up with the budget? Do you have a baseline budget, a foundation budget? That is
At Tri-County?
That is a formula-driven budget, similar to what the
Yes.
school has here.
Yes.
There is a, so.
There must
you
be.
get-
You can go
There must be a
online.
formula.
Yeah, it's online.
I mean, there's gotta be, I don't know what the formula is, I'm not as
Yeah,
familiar with
but
that.
As long as
It's
it's formula-driven, then we can.
But there's
go.
gotta be a formula at the
Yeah,
end.
and it's online.
And the per pupil cost is higher than FPS.
Yeah, yeah.
It is,
It's, right, because it's
Yeah.
vocational school
Yeah.
for obvious reasons,
Right,
right?
the equipment,
Yeah.
the-
The equipment,
yeah.
and the gear,
Yeah.
yeah.
Question, it may be not part of this, but there's assessment for the charter school.
Yeah.
How's that developed?
That's all state law. That was from Ed Reform in 1993, and I don't believe that's been tweaked since.
But there's a formula out there?
Yes, there is a formula. So the charter school is funded through two sources. One, the per pupil cost, sorry, Carrie, I think I'm pointing at the thing and I'm getting close to your head. So, Carrie, I think I felt her just go like this. But there's a per pupil cost, if it's 18, whatever the number is here locally for FPS, 18,000 roughly, just for round numbers. The per pupil cost, if a student goes from FPS and goes to the charter school, that per pupil cost goes with them. That's the $6 million number under the
Yeah.
assessments and other votes that's just below where the screen is there. There's a second state line item in the state budget, it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars. And then that also goes out through some system, I don't know how they divvy it up, that goes out to some system to the 80 different charter schools throughout Massachusetts and whatever they do. So those are the main two sources of funding. I think other charters have unique provisions in them that allow them to fundraise or do philanthropic things, like I don't, you know, every charter has a whole different set of rules, has a different structure, has a different, you know, headmaster and a different everything. So, but those are the main two sources of funding for the charter school.
Okay, so as my mind's simple at times.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the charter school goes down and says, okay, I got 100 students times a number, that's the budget. It's not like they can say, I'm gonna add on 5 things and we're gonna charge the town for those 5 things.
Not to us, not in our budget, no.
Okay.
How they do with the state, I don't know that. There may be some other system. I know that they do have like capital facilities. Charter school, there's a like mass development partnership with the state where you can do a major capital upgrade through other state programs, but that has nothing to do with the
That has
town.
nothing to do with you, so.
Has nothing to do with us.
The baseline for that school is a formula-driven number.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh.
Oh, God.
Surprise.
You thought you were going to leave
Sit
early.
down.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Almost voted.
I wanted to do this tonight and thank the 8 of you for taking the time out of your day, week, to do this. No matter where the gavel falls, thank you from all of us, I'm sure, for this. Your enthusiasm and engagement with the questions you asked is something that I have never experienced, and I've done this multiple times throughout my career. I hope you see the enthusiasm on our faces, too, about how we feel about our budgets. I treat this budget better than I do my own personal budget. And I'm not trying to be funny, it's the truth, and I think everybody here takes it very seriously, because it is a $150 million budget. So it's serious stuff. We're committed to this passion, and I hope it came across. Shannon brought something up tonight with a question to TJ, and I believe it was, what does your real budget look like? What would your real budget be? My real budget is, I don't want to have to look at my budget every time I have to buy an educational book for my inspectors. And right now, that's what I do. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Whatever way this goes, you've asked these questions that, frankly, it shocked me with what you've done tonight. And Tom, a clap for you.
Mr. Chairman, I know you want to adjourn. I just have to be sure
boy,
how many
Harry.
people are coming tomorrow night. You have a quorum?
Yes,
Because
I think we're
Shannon's
all
not
missing.
coming and Lauren's not coming.
yes.
Okay,
As
just
far as I
wanted to
know,
be
everybody
sure.
else is coming.
Everybody else is in?
You can get a quorum at
Yes.
McDonald's on accident. You should be okay.
Yeah, we'll have a quorum, I have no doubt.
Okay.
Does a town council, does a finance committee budget allow for pizza?
Not anymore, we're cutting it.
We cut our budget, actually. Cut our budget
If you had
by
asked
now,
Jeff
you're-
Nutting, I know what the answer would have been.
I think it ought to have sleeping bags in it, that's what I think.
We model by example.
We'll take the,
Yeah, someone motioned, I said so moved.
all in favor?